Good morning, everybody. Welcome to City Hall. We're getting ready. morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to City Hall, welcome to Council Chambers, and welcome to a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council for today, Tuesday, September 30th, 2003. The City Council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Meetings are open to the public, and we do invite you to join us. For members of the public unable to attend council meetings, we can be viewed live on your cable station, Channel 35. We can also be viewed live via webcast from the city's homepage or heard via council phone. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On Labange, Ludlow, Misakowski, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, Villaraigosa, Weisstein, Padilla, 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The council is officially in session. Before beginning with the matters appearing on today's agenda, this being Tuesday and the first meeting of the week, we do have a custom of pledging allegiance to our flag. Let me ask Councilmember Gruhl to lead us.
Thank you, Mr. President. If we could rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance this morning. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl. Let me recognize Ms. Perry for an introduction.
I'm not ready yet, I'm sorry.
Let us know when they're here.
I'm sorry.
Madam Clerk, first order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Ms. Perry moves and Mr. Garcetti seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Ms. Misakowski moves and Mr. Smith seconds.
On the regular agenda, there are several items that have been requested to be continued. Item number 7, the applicant requests a continuance to November 5th.
Colleagues request to continue item number number 7. Without objection, item 7 is continued.
And there's also a request to continue item number 11 for 2 weeks, and that would be October 14th.
Members, item number 11, request for continuance, also without objection.
Mr. President, there is a commissioner that is on the agenda. Do you wish to take that matter up first, or do you wish to go through the agenda first?
Let me recognize Mr. Labange.
I was just looking at the board up there. Good morning, Mr. President.
Morning, Mr. Labange.
What numbers are we looking at right now?
Right now, we were items to be continued.
How about 24?
To continue?
Sure, a week.
Okay, colleagues, we have a request to continue item number 24 for 1 week. That would be October 7th.
Thank you.
Without objection. And let's hold the commission appointment on the desk and let's go through the agenda call item special.
On the regular agenda, items noticed for public hearing. Item number 1 is a required public hearing, and I believe there are cards on that.
We do have cards for members of the public on item number 1. We'll call that item special for a public hearing.
Items 2 through 6 are also public hearing items. Council should open the public hearings and continue the hearings and ordinances to October 21st.
Okay, items number 2 through 6 currently before us. Mr. Labange, on items 2 through 6?
That's all right.
No, on items 2 through 6, colleagues, I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council. We shall therefore deem the public hearings opened and without objection continue them to October 21st. Ms. Perry?
I'm waiting for 9.
Okay. Next items, please.
Items 8 through 41 are items for which public hearings have been held. Items 8 through 15 are ordinances. Do you wish to hold those on the desk for 12 council members?
Let's hold ordinances on the desk. Colleagues, items 8 through 41 now before us. Public hearings have been held. A motion from the floor would be required to reopen the public hearings. Any specials? Ms. Perry, Mr. Labange.
9.
Item 9, call special by Ms. Perry. Mr. Labange.
Item number 40.
Item number 40, call special by Mr. Labange. Mr. Parks.
Items 19 and 20, we have a technical amendment.
19 and 20, is there a written motion that'll be circulated?
Just a verbal, just
Which
a
is-
change in the authority to let the contract.
Okay, you want to make that verbal
On
amending
both of
motion,
those,
and we'll consider the
yes.
items as amended?
On number 19 and 20, make a motion that in the era that we listed the mayor's office as being the appointing authority on letting the contract, it should be the city attorney's office. My understanding, the mayor's office has no problem with that change.
Okay, without objection, we'll consider items 19 and 20 as amended. Mr. Smith?
3, please.
43 will be called special, will not there quite yet. Mr. Garcetti?
29, please.
29 called special by Mr. Garcetti. Any other specials? Colleagues, items 8 through 41 currently before us, with the exception of items called special, and will hold ordinances on the desk. Madam Clerk, please open the roll on the balance of the items. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 eyes.
Those are approved, including items 19 and 20 as amended. Next items, please.
I believe there was a request, Councilmember Garcetti wished to have item number 38 go back to Public Works Committee.
Mr. Garcetti? Item 38? Okay. Mr. Garcetti moves reconsideration of item 38, which we have just approved. Without objection, item 38 is reconsidered and back before us and duly referred to the Public Works Committee. Next items, please.
Items for which public hearings have not been held, items 42 through 73, and 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, without objection, these items shall be considered by the City Council today. We have a commission appointment as item 42. Let's call that special and consider that as the first item. Mr. Smith calls item 43 special. On items 42 through 73, I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council, therefore satisfying the public hearings. Any further specials? Mr. Ludlow.
72.
72 called special by Mr. Ludlow. Any other specials? Seeing none on the balance of the items, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 eyes.
That is approved. Mr. Garcetti?
Yes, can I request that 28 and 30 go forthwith, please?
28 and 30 forthwith, please.
Leslie, did we do item number 11?
Next item.
Going back to the items called special, the first item would be the Commissioner, and that's item number 42. And as a clarification, this is a communication from the Council President and the Council President's appointment.
Okay. Item 42 currently before us. With that clarification from the clerk, will Leslie Ann or TK please come forward? Colleagues, we do have a committee report recommending approval of the reappointment. Are there members wishing to be heard on item 42? Members wishing to be heard on item 42? There's no members wishing to be heard. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 eyes.
That is approved.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for your service to the city. Forthwith, please. Next item.
Next item called special, item number 1 was called special inasmuch as there are cards from the public.
Colleagues, item number 1 now before us, and we shall begin the public comment period by calling forward Arnold Graham, Chris Funk, Tony Lucente, David Berg, and Art Howard. If you would form a line behind the podium, that would expedite our public hearing. And I'll call your attention to a clock up on the screen. Go ahead.
Thank you. President Padilla and members of the council. We are here today because of the inability to interface with city government on what should be a cooperative effort and a mutual effort to achieve mutual goals and a common objective. My name is Arnold Graham. I represent Home Place Retirement Communities of America. The property in question is the Studio City Golf and Tennis Club property in Studio City. My client has a pending project before the City Planning Commission for a senior community housing project consisting of 204 units. We're here in opposition to the resolution of necessity. We ask the council to defer the use of its maximal powers of government to take private property. We ask that you have the authorized city representatives sit and work with our clients as they mutually go through this process to work out something for the common benefit of the entire community. As I indicated before, our client has a pending project. It's to use 4 acres of the 17.2 acres of the Studio City property for a senior housing project. The city now wants to come along and take a corner parcel out of that. It is our objective to have the city work with us as we commonly go through this objective of going to the next stage of what is going to happen to this 17.2 acre property. Our client's objective is to develop for senior housing purposes only 4 acres and leave the rest as open space for the benefit of the city, for the benefit of the community. Included in that process, however, is a need to work with the fire department, a need to work with the city, so that what is going to happen to this property is worked out together, so that we get to the end of this process. There's a golf and tennis court property use presently there. That expires in January 2005. After that, the golf and tennis court use will be gone as a matter of law, as a matter of contract, as a matter of expiration of the conditional use permit on the property. We've presented to each of you, members of the council, what this project will look like. And showing before you the larger parcel as it exists now. And the tennis courts will be consumed by the housing project. But we're holding up before you now what it will look like in the after condition. The turquoise spots indicate the housing, senior housing development.
Thank you.
The objective, of course, is to leave open the vast majority of the property for the benefit of the city. And we ask this council if it would defer taking the extreme condemnation action and have the city work with our client in a cooperative effort. We have never had that opportunity. We've never been allowed to meet with the city personnel.
Thank you, sir. Let me ask you to conclude, and we can proceed
thank
with
you
the other
very much.
speakers. Mr. Chris Funk is our next speaker.
Mr. President, members of the council, my name is Chris Funk. I won't reiterate what Mr. Graham said, but just to stress that this is a real project. I don't want you to focus on the project itself, though, but the way in which the fire station that's in front of you could fit into this project. We have an environmental impact report that's being prepared right now. In fact, Mr. Weiss is one of the people who pushed for that. We're a few months away from having that finished, but it includes not just the 240 senior housing units. And I know Councilmember Gruhl is one of the people who's served with me on various panels talking about the need for housing throughout Los Angeles at all points along the spectrum. It also provides 12 acres of the golf course, which could well be dedicated. It has a 1 acre site held for the fire department, which could well be provided to the city either at a substantially discounted rate or dedicated as part of the overall project. So free instead of $1 million or $4 million, which has been discussed, or more. The EIR also covers the potential impacts of the relationship between the fire station and the 240 units. That's not done by the city any other place. You have a negative declaration that ignores our project, basically says it's going to happen, but talks about no impacts at all, talks about no potential impacts coming from a fire station with 6 full-time emergency vehicles operating up to 24 hours a day. And, you know, what we're really saying is you've got a situation where it's a choice between possibly spending $1 million that you don't have to spend at a time when you can least afford it, and not satisfying CEQA by piecemealing this project, by trying to go forward with a project that is not adequately assessed while we have an EIR that will assess it, as opposed to simply taking this off calendar or for a specified amount of time continuing the matter to allow Home Place to sit down with the appropriate city officials and talk about a way we can resolve this. If we can't find you can go forward with the process, we think you can. So our request is, please, take it off calendar. Let us finally talk to the council member. Let us talk to staff and get this resolved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Tony Lucente, and I understand there's going to be a 3, maybe 4 speakers speaking on behalf of the entire group.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Council President Padilla, other city council members. I'm here today representing the 2,300 member household Studio City Resident Association. And we are here to discuss a very important item of public safety. As you know, the San Fernando Valley, including many parts of Studio City, were devastated by the Northridge earthquake, including our fire station, number 78. Since that time, we've been working diligently with the fire department to identify other sites that may be usable to replace this very outdated, indeed this station is literally nothing more than a trailer serving all the 20,000 plus residents of Studio City. So I personally went on a tour of various sites with the LAFD and looked at different sites. We then brought it to our membership, and in October 2001, we conducted a meeting. It was attended by nearly 150 residents. We debated the issues, we weighed the pros, the cons, and the community overwhelmingly adopted and supported this proposal. This is an item of public safety. There may be impacts related to other developments that may be pending, but the most important impact that I would ask you to consider is the impact on public safety to the residents of Studio City. It is flatlands, it is also hillsides, and this fire station that is proposed would greatly enhance the safety of all the residents of our community. We have reported almost monthly on this important issue to our membership. I have copies of our newsletter which goes out to all the members, and we have heard repeatedly from folks that they support this proposal. We have also weighed in as an association in the past in support of Proposition F. And while Proposition F serves the city at large, this is also an issue of getting the valley's fair share. We've been waiting a long, long time. Our safety is in jeopardy. Please help us go down the path towards greater public safety for the greater public benefit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lucente, will you let me know who's speaking on behalf of the group?
Yes, Mr. David Berg will speak, as will Art Howard and Beth Diamond. The other members we could ask to stand at this time to show your support of this position.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. President, council members, thank you very much for the opportunity to address you today on this extremely important issue. My name is David Berg. I am Vice Chair of the Studio City Neighborhood Council, a member of the Ventura Boulevard Specific Plan Review Board, and co-chair of the Studio City Residents Association Golf and Tennis Committee. I'm speaking today on my own behalf and not on behalf of the Neighborhood Council or the Plan Review Board. Studio City has waited far too long for a fire station. Our fire station is operating out of a temporary facility for nearly 10 years now. The hillside communities in Studio City are not adequately served. The issue today is an issue of public fire safety that is before this council. There is strong feeling in our community about the proposed golf and tennis development. Many of us very strongly oppose taking precious, open recreational space that has served our community for 50 years and putting in a massive senior housing project on that property. But that's not the issue that's before the council today. The issue before the council today is whether the city ought to use Prop F funds that are in place for this very purpose to purchase this property with the strong support of the Studio City community to build a sorely needed fire station in Studio City. There are no other alternative sites that are now available. This property is available. This property is ideal. The fire station, the Los Angeles Fire Department wants this fire station here. The Studio City community wants this fire station here. The only people that don't want this fire station here is a single developer. And I ask the council to take the interests of our community at heart and to pass this motion today with overwhelming support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker, please.
Mr. President and council members, Art Howard, Executive Vice President of Studio City Residents Association. While the Residents Association does have strong concerns about the golf and tennis courts, what we're here today for is a matter of life or death. For many years, we have not had adequate fire protection facilities or personnel in our entire community. I was also part of the group that looked at various sites. This is the only possible site that would work for the size of a fire station that we need, deserve, and you have the funds to provide us. Any measure you take that delays this action is possibly going to cost lives of death of people and destruction to property. I'm going to be very short. The important thing is it's a matter of life or death, and it must be acted on now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Beth Diamond.
Mr. President, council members, my name is Beth Diamond. I am the Secretary of the Studio City Residents Association, and I also live right off of Laurel Canyon. This is hillside property which is extremely flammable. We need a fire station close by. We have one at the top of Laurel Canyon and one at the top of Coldwater Canyon. These are both very small stations. If there was a huge fire in that area, they would not be adequate. I don't know if the people around here have very short memories, but we had a huge Laurel Canyon fire that absolutely devastated the canyon, and it is imperative that this fire station go through. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I did receive a note from Mort Allen, who wanted to speak on this side of the issue as well, but I wanted to read the other names into the record, people who are here for the proposal, who have opted not to speak. Laurie Cohn, Barbara Monahan, Mary Facchetti, Kelly Irwin, Barbara Cantro, Dorothy Meyer, Michaelin DiMatteo, Maggie Mackler, and Guy Weddington McCreary. Thank you for being here. Mr. Allen.
Yes, I'm part of a group that owns the Studio City Sports Center. We've spent $40 million in the last 10 years building the Bed Bath & Beyond, Staples, Aaron Brothers. We just completed, in fact, it's opening tomorrow, the bowling alley, a $4 million renovation on Jerry's Deli in the bowling alley. We were promised this fire station when we started the project. This site was designated 6 years ago by Captain Lou Rapoli and I when we went out looking, long before this development came. Now, what many of you don't know is long before Arnold became the icon, there was a fellow named Joe Palooka, who was really Joe Kirkwood, who was the #1 idol movie star in the 50s. He came along with this idea to have a project like this. He built the golf course, he built the bowling alley, he built what's now Jerry's Deli, and this was always meant to be a community situation. We're not talking about what happens with the golf course right now. We're talking about the fact that you've got to have a fire station. We have 5,000 people a day that go through the Jerry's Deli, the bowling alley, the theaters, the stores, and all of that. And we have one lousy Quonset hut metal fire department over on Coldwater that they can't get out because of the traffic. Now, this was long designated a site, and regardless, there's 21 acres, including city land there. So this little 4-acre corner certainly isn't going to make a difference. And we have to have this fire station. We need it immediately. And if there's money to buy Amundsen Ranch and there's money to buy all these school sites, certainly a fire station in Studio City, which also services the CBS Studio Center and all the production facilities around there. So I would like to see a unanimous vote today, and let's get this thing going fast. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This closes public comment for today. We'll now hear from council members, starting with Councilmember Grewal.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise to ask your support for item 1, which will authorize the city to acquire property through condemnation proceedings in order to build Fire Station 78 in Studio City. There's been some information distributed to the council that I believe contains several false arguments. So to clear up any of those misgivings about the projects, I've asked the city attorney, the departments of planning, engineering, and the fire department here, if I could, Chief Prince. as well to come up to the table, and any of the other departments I mentioned as well. And if we could hold my time for a moment. Because my first question is for Chief Prince, so I'll wait till he gets seated. How are you this morning? First, the question that was raised has been about necessity. And if you could, please describe for us the conditions of Fire Station 78. Several of us are familiar with it, but if you could for my colleagues.
The existing fire station today was built on the existing site where we demoed the earthquake damaged fire station, was red tagged there. We put in temporary modular buildings, trailers. They're minimal in size because we thought it was going to be temporary and we'd be moving on to a new site somewhere and build a new facility. We built a metal shed to put the fire apparatus into, and it's large enough for the engine but not the rescue that's now assigned there. The rescue actually parks outside most of the time. The parking is very small. They can't bring the apparatus out and do the maintenance on it that they normally do, that the firemen do there. It does not meet what we consider our new standard for fire stations today, a 15,000 square foot building on a 1 acre site. This was one of the primary projects when we passed Prop F, was to replace this fire station, try to do it as quickly as we could. We searched for property in that area for quite a while, looked at various sites, and was asked by the neighborhood to come and consider the Studio City Golf Course, and we saw it as a viable project, and we moved forward with it, and that's where we are today. I mean, there's been a lot of dialogue back and forth through the years, but we're at a point now where we need to move forward.
Great, thank you. And I know the developers also raised, this is a question for the city attorney for Ms. Fan, about whether an EIR is required for Station 78. And is the city in compliance with CEQA, and was the environmental review that we did consistent with CEQA requirements? If you could respond to that, please.
Susan Fan, Assistant City Attorney. Yes, we believe that the CEQA clearance is appropriate for this project. Just to point out a couple of things, your body has actually adopted the negative declaration for this and approved the project. Back in January 17th of 2003, the negative declaration was prepared. It contained a reference to this other project that Mr. Graham has talked about, and it was adopted by the City Council, and at that same time, the City Council, in effect, approved the project by giving the go-ahead to acquire the project. We're back here again now because we were not able to get a voluntary acquisition of the property, and now need to condemn it if we want to acquire it. But there's no need for an additional CEQA clearance at this time. The other issues that were raised about the other project being pending, and therefore there should be an environmental clearance that discusses both. I've been advised both by engineering staff and by the planning department that that application, the developer wants to have an application for the senior citizen housing, but it's not in a state where it could be really considered pending. The application is not complete. The environmental documents have not been prepared. In this most recent letter that was sent to all the council members on September 28th, and a footnote indicates the status of the environmental preparations for that, and it's not at a state where our staff would consider it to be the type of project that should be considered to be a cumulative impact. So what you did back in January and what you should be doing now is to focus on the impacts of the fire station. There's really been no discussion or any indication that the environmental documentation that you adopted before is not good now. And
they weren't present in January to comment at all on the negative declaration.
Well, there was a letter that was actually in front of you, the same, essentially raising the same environmental issues that is being raised now. It's our opinion that to raise these now is legally too late, but we don't have a concern about the substance as well.
Okay. Also, and this is for John Miner from the city attorney, developers argued that the proper appraisals for both the 1 acre site and the 17 acre site have not been properly performed. Have we done the necessary appraisals as required by law? And then finally, the developers argued that that we're not negotiating in good faith. Could you also outline for us, for my colleagues, the negotiations for this property that have occurred thus far?
Okay, taking the latter point first, the city made an offer.
Hold my time, thank you.
The city has actually made 2 offers to this developer. We just recently received a counter to that offer just last week. Subsequent to that, I was informed by Developers Council that that counter had been withdrawn pending his development of an additional proposal. So to say that we have not been negotiating in good faith is a misstatement at best, because we have an offer, we have a counter, and we're still in that process. Passing this condemnation ordinance today will not affect the ability for the city and the interested parties to continue their negotiations. With respect to the appraisal has been performed by the city. It's been approved by the city for the 1-acre fire station. We have that appraisal. The developer is not entitled to that under the eminent domain statutes, because this is a commercial property and not a residential property. He may be upset because he hasn't been able to see our number yet, but we do have a number. We've based our offer in good faith on that number, and the appraisal has been approved by the city for the 1 acre. We have not yet taken any action to appraise the remaining 16 acres.
Thank you. Colleagues, today we have, from my perspective, a very clear choice before us. The City of Los Angeles has followed, as you've heard, all of the CEQA requirements. We've performed the proper appraisals. This is a project that has been in discussions prior to me even being elected and prior to me representing this area. It was represented by Councilmember Weiss previously. And we continue to negotiate in good faith. We have sent material back and forth. We have been negotiating, and that negotiation can continue after today as well. I think that is also a point I wanted to make. We need to secure this property for the better good of the San Fernando Valley, and particularly that Studio City and Sherman Oaks area. Any of you who have seen that fire station that is between a gas station and the parking lot and the Sportsman's Lodge knows that this is not adequate, far from it, to serve the community that I represent and others represent in that neighborhood. We need a first-class fire station. This today is about the 1 acre for the fire station. The other development, all of you know where I come from on that, and we'll be discussing that at a future date. But today, we are talking about a fire station that the voters approved a bond measure to build. We need to move now on this fire station. No haste, no waste. It's our opportunity to provide fire safety for our neighborhood. So I ask for your aye vote today. I know that some of you have expressed, you've seen, I know Dennis Zine has seen this fire station and shared the same concerns. So I ask for an aye vote today so we can move ahead and provide appropriate fire safety for this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Grewal. Next, I'd like to recognize the Chair of Public Safety Committee, Councilmember Mizikowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of Ms. Grewal's statement and the recommendation that we move forward on this. Interesting, in the letter we got today, we said, gee, the owner of the larger parcel has said, we've tried to meet, we haven't met. And in fact, that's not true. They have met. There have been offers made on the part of the fire department, on the part of the city, for this station. And this station, no matter what happens in the future, is going to be there, and I think everyone agrees. What's happening is the owner of the property is really using the station as leverage to deal with the other project that's not before us, that the city has already taken an action on, saying let's attempt to purchase it. So we ought not to be confused. We ought to separate that out. This parcel identified, station identified in Prop F, funds identified in Prop F. Clearly the need is demonstrated by the fire department. The I's were dotted and the T's were crossed by the city attorney in going through the process. It's not unlike any process any other process we've gone through for all the fire stations. Where we get agreement, it's fine. Where we don't get agreement, we have moved on this level. So I think the time is overdue in this community. This is clear. There's no real objection to the use of this property. As I say, it's really just being used as a pawn or leverage in a larger issue that really is not before us today. We ought not to let that happen. Let us be clear. Let us move forward distinctly on this property, and as I say, not be confused by the others. That will come in its own time as we move forward, and it will have its own test moving forward separately. But this one, there's no reason to hold it up or to impinge in any way on the recommendation that's been brought forward by the departments and the committees, and the recommendation of the council district.
Thank you very much, Ms. Miskowski. Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Ms. Misikowski, for what you just said. You were absolutely dead on. Thank you, Wendy Gruhl, for continuing. Where's Wendy Gruhl? There she is. For continuing for the past year and a half that you've represented Studio City to work so tirelessly on the preservation of the jewel of Studio City. It's really nice for me to look out and see some of my friends from Studio City here. And David Berg, as you remember, you were the very first person who told me about this issue when I was campaigning, when we went out to lunch. And I told you then I would do everything I could if I were elected to help save the Studio City Golf and Tennis Center. I repeated that, Tony, at debates we had at your association. And I will continue to do everything I can to save the Studio City Golf and Tennis Center. This is a jewel. It's a jewel of open space. And in case you haven't noticed, they're not making any more open space in Los Angeles. We have to do what we can to protect it right there in the south central San Fernando Valley. Let me just say two things about my district. One is, as we saw in the study that was done about a year or so ago from the Rec and Parks Department with having to do with usage of this, while it's something that people in Studio City feel particularly passionate about, the use is spread throughout the valley. There are plenty of people from Encino and Sherman Oaks and Valley Village, areas that I represent, who are regular users of the Studio City Golf and Tennis Club. There are regular users from Van Nuys, from Pacoima, from Reseda. It's something that stretches across all the valley. And so, colleagues, today as we consider this matter and as we consider the matters in the future, let's understand this is not just about Studio City, it's about all of the valley. The second point I want to make is it's critical that we get this fire station built. This fire station serves my district as well. It serves the hillside areas of Sherman Oaks. It conceivably will serve Encino, Valley Village, and other parts of the valley. These units will respond up to Mulholland if need be. And the conditions that they're working out of right now are not adequate. The fire department desperately needs a quality station in Studio City, Sherman Oaks. I'm pleased to support this today, and I'm pleased to continue to work with my friend Wendy Gruhl to do everything we can to preserve the Studio City Golf and Tennis Center. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weiss. If we can have items 19 and 20 go forthwith, please. And Mr. Zine is next.
Thank you. Prop F, when did that pass?
November of 2000.
And I think at the same time, we had a proposition to build some police stations.
That was a previous proposition. It was earlier
Well,
in the year.
2000, we had, correct me, Councilman Misikowski, the police stations. Wasn't it Prop F?
No, that was Proposition Q.
In 2000?
No,
2001?
I think that fire police stations was in 2000, F was in 2001, something like that. But anyway, we got two sequential ones.
I know that we're moving forward with police stations, which haven't developed controversy. There's been some concern, but not a great deal of controversy. The concern I have in this area, and I've been to that facility. I think Tom LaBonge probably went there when he was a little child in the old rickety station before they put up, what I look at, they look like trailers, the prefabs. And it amazes me that in a mountain fire district, Coldwater Canyon, Laurel Canyon, the inadequate facilities that the city is providing for the residents and the businesses along that corridor. And I know it's through no fault that it hasn't been improved because they're trying to improve it. And that's what troubles me is now when we're on the brink of doing something to enhance the safety of that area. I used to live up near Laurel Canyon and Mulholland, and I know what fires do in that area. You've got a station up at Mulholland and Laurel Canyon. You've got one at Coldwater and Mulholland. You've got one at Coldwater and Ventura. I don't know if there's any other stations in that area to provide immediate response to that area.
Those are the first responding stations.
Okay, so those are the first responders. So if a fire breaks out on Coldwater Canyon near Ventura Boulevard, the station would respond next to the Sportsman's Lodge, that little driveway, which to me is inadequate when we have multi-million-dollar homes, multi-million-dollar businesses, and people's lives at stake, and we know what happens when the fires take over in the mountain hillside. The issue for me is public safety, and we can quibble about housing, we can quibble about other issues, but it's about safety. And the living quarters for the firefighters, I don't know how comfortable they are in the current facility. I've been to the air operations, they're living in trailers, very comfortable trailers, more in line to a comfort environment, and they have to live in those facilities. So this particular facility, do we have anything else in the city that compare to this that has been put together in this fashion?
Not fire stations.
So it's the only one?
Yeah, typically these buildings are designed to last 7 to 10 years, something like that, as a temporary facility. And we're there now. They're beginning to show their age. If we don't replace them pretty soon, it's going to be a constant maintenance problem.
And you have no facility for the rescue unit, the paramedic unit?
No,
that sits out in the elements?
It sits outside, yeah.
And then the vehicles for the firefighters, where do they sit?
Their personal vehicles?
Yes.
They're parked inside a fenced area, but it's all right there out in front, exposed.
And this is the area that, so people don't understand, adjacent to the Sportsman's Lodge.
Right.
That little area that's been carved out.
Yeah, there's a large, I believe it's a Whole Foods market, something like that, a health market right next door to them. And then the Sportsman's Lodge wraps around the other side of the property.
Okay, well,
There's nowhere to expand there.
Pardon me?
There's nowhere to expand on site.
I understand that, and I'm supporting this motion to move forward in the interest of public safety and for all the folks, I know Tony and the people from Sherman Oaks, Studio City, that live up in that area, that keep their fingers crossed that a fire doesn't break out on these windy Santa Ana days, that we can respond sufficient equipment. Do you have one engine parked there?
Yeah, there's one engine that won't house any more than that.
So one fire truck would respond until additional units arrive, and we know how critical it is to get there as quickly as possible, and with the traffic conditions that we have to deal with in the city.
Yeah, typically what we do on a high hazard day that we predict the weather and that sort of thing is we pre-deploy other resources around the city in those areas that we know are subject to opportunity for fire. We can't do that here. There's nowhere to put them, and we'd be parked in the street and around the market and in the gas station. It's impossible to do that. The new facility would provide us with a place to pre-stage resources for all that hillside area that's up there to bring, so that those companies are there minutes ahead of where they normally would be if we had an incident in that place.
And if I recall back, and just one more minute, just indulge 1 minute.
Last question.
When I was a youngster, I remember there was a devastating fire in Laurel Canyon area, and the people up at Mulholland Laurel Canyon didn't want a fire station. And I know that after that effect, and this was many years ago, all of a sudden they approved, yes, let's put a fire station up, because they thought it would disrupt the environment. Well, the fire devastates the environment. The fire station protects the environment. And I know that the situation took place at Laurel Canyon, Mulholland. That station has blended well with that community, and I think this will blend well with that particular community to serve the people in the area. How many trucks are you going to have in the new facility?
The new facility will be capable of handling a whole task force, which is an engine and a ladder truck and a couple of rescues, depending on what the need is in the community in the future.
And the money is there?
For the resource and the people? No, but for
No,
the
the money
building.
is there for the facility.
For the building, yeah. The money is there for the building. That's Prop F.
Okay, and I would never vote against the fire department.
Okay, Mr.
In the interest of public safety, and I support this 110%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zion. Councilmember Labange.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the record, Guy Weddington McQuarrie is here, a prominent citizen of the San Fernando Valley, and I believe the property owner. Did fit all the card. In his card, though, for the record, it should state that he is for the fire department, but he's against this process. Correct, Guy? That's correct. That's correct. Thank you. I wanted it for the record, so you have his card remarked. Now, Mr. Zine, I doubt if anybody never wanted a fire station in their neighborhood along Mulholland. As a representative of the Santa Monica Mountains and the Hollywood Hills, they do have concerns, but I'm sure they've always wanted a fire station, and that one that you represent, that's represented there, that's in Wendy's district, right on Mulholland near Laurel Canyon, across from mine, blends perfectly into the neighborhood and a wonderful design of a building. Maybe as a motor officer, you didn't work Mulholland enough to recognize that, but we'll forgive you for that.
I was trying to find you up there.
No, God bless you, Dennis. But anyway, this is a tough process that we have to do for the good of the people. We've had struggles, and I know I brought matters to this council that have struggled. And I know Councilmember Gruhl and her staff has worked diligently to try to find a way with the city staff, fire department staff, and city attorney to move forward for public safety protection. Guy, I love you, and I love all what you stand for, but there's a need for the city to move forward in this particular case here. And this opportunity, which is so nice for Fire Station 78, is this particular company is extremely skilled in river rescues, and it's adjacent to the Los Angeles River. So when this is located here, these firefighters will be able to respond not only to the Santa Monica Mountains, not only to the Mulholland area or Ventura or to any part of Valley Village or Studio City, but also they're specially trained for needs with the Los Angeles River. So I just wanted to clarify Mr. Guy Weddington McQuarrie's thoughts, but also to articulate my thoughts and thank Councilmember Gruhl for the effort, and also thank Jack Weiss for Jack's efforts and his staff previous to this issue here. But thank Wendy for trying to bring this thing home, and in the end, everybody's going to win. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange. And finally, Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, colleagues. I really want to thank you for your support today, and particularly for supporting the fire department and my community. And thank you to the community that's represented here today, and also to Guy Weddington McQuarrie, who I similarly has been a key supporter of activities in that Studio City area. Fire Station 78 needs a new home. We've heard some very descriptive words from our fire chief here talking about the desperate needs in that community, and particularly if you've ever seen the facility. As he mentioned, they've been working out of these trailers for over 8 years. This is about the valley getting its fire station that we've told them they're going to have. It's about the 1 acre. I want to reiterate that this is only about the 1 acre property on the fire station, and that we need to send a clear message that public safety and fire safety is critical to this neighborhood, and we want to share in that. So thank you so much for your kind words that all of you have spoken, and to the staff who have worked very diligently to move this forward. And it's my hope in the near future we'll have that fire station up and running. So thank you very much, and continue to ask for an aye vote.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gruhl. That finishes the speakers, colleagues. If we can open the roll on the item, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That item is approved. Before our next item, I'd like to recognize Ms. Mizikowski for an introduction, and then Ms. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to introduce a visitor here to the chambers, and I'm sure that Mr. Labange would like to join me. We have sitting here in the second row a person who used to sit up here. In fact, when I saw him in the building today, I said, why wasn't he sitting up here? I'd like to introduce to the council Mr. George Buchanan. George, please rise. He is and was the city attorney for the city council for many, many years, sitting up there. And members, in the days gone by, the city attorney used to get a lot tougher questions, get involved in the debate with us. There would be a lot more challenge to the chair, and the city attorney would have to advise us what was right or wrong and get involved. And George was the stalwart who was doing this work for us. So I'd like to welcome George back to City Hall, who's visiting with his wife. George, thank you.
Hey, George, thank you. And
Thank you, Mr. Labange.
Yeah, Sidney, which was so wonderful. George, for 19 years, Mr. City Attorney, he sat right down there. Over 25 years service to the people of Los Angeles. Been retired for 13 years, which is very good, George, because you contributed greatly for over a quarter of a century to the people of Los Angeles. But Sidney, you're so right. There were difficult battles sometimes, and George, you were always there to do what's right for the city and right for the city council. So it's wonderful to have you. And thanks for all the extra work you do for our Sister City program in Auckland, New Zealand, and other things as well. George Buchanan, give him a big hand.
Welcome, Mr. Buchanan. Nice to have you back in chambers. Welcome home. Ms. Perry for an introduction.
Thank you very
as well.
much, Mr. Chair. I wanted to recognize a very special visitor here today. This is Michael Wood from Britain. Would you please rise, Mr. Wood? He's dressed in this very unique and dramatic way because he was named the best town crier by the Loyal Company of Town Criers at their British Championships this year in Halifax, West Yorkshire. As well as this honor, he was also picked as the favorite crier in a very special People's Choice Award from a list of strong vocal contenders. I would like to welcome him to our city today, to our City Hall, and to thank him, and also thank our very own downtown town crier. He's the world champion.
Would the world champion like to say something to the council?
But as you're going to the mic, I'd also like to thank, yeah, go on, come on over there. Thank Don Garza, our local community activist, for bringing Mr. Wood here today so we could welcome him to our city.
Oh yay! Oh yay! Oh yay! Mr. President and council members of Los Angeles City Council, ladies and gentlemen, Be it known on this 30th day of September, in this the year 2003, I am delighted at being invited through the auspices of Los Angelian Don Garza, downtown neighborhood town crier, to proclaim that as the official town crier for the East Riding of Yorkshire and honorary town crier for Hollywood, California. Whilst here on business and pleasure, it is an honor indeed to be given the opportunity of addressing this distinguished company and bringing warm greetings from the Council Chairman of the East Riding of Yorkshire, Councillor Mary Rose Hardy, and also the citizens of the United Kingdom. As an urban cheerleader and ambassador of goodwill for my community, upon completion of this council meeting, I will be visiting the great city of Los Angeles, meeting the local citizens, and forming stronger relationships and bonds with your own downtown neighborhood town crier, Don Garza. God bless you all, and God save my queen.
Bravo. We'd like to thank you for coming down. Thank Ms. Perry for that introduction. And Tom LeBon, you got some competition now. Okay. I'd like to recognize Mr. Deaton for a moment to say something about Mr. Buchanan as well.
Hello. Anyway, actually, it's hard to believe, but that's how Buchanan would have had us start each council meeting. No. When you look at the rules, the council rules that you're operating under today, those are largely Wayne Kelly's and George Buchanan's rules. They got me in a room and taught me one day how to argue, but those two guys put those rules together. You're operating under George Buchanan's rules. And I just thought you should, if you don't like them, this is
that a good thing or a bad thing, Mr.
opportunity
Deaton?
to complain.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deaton. If we can take up item 29 next, there was an amendment circulated or a CDD report circulated.
Wait, Mr. President, can I have Mr. Deaton come to the center table, please, real quick? Just real quick, please. Because Mr. Buchanan is here after 19 years of service, I think it's only important, as he articulated, that the late, great Wayne Kelly and also George Buchanan did it. So it's the power invested in me by the town crier that I present to this gold ribbon for making sure we follow the rules that George created. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LeBons. While that goes on, we may just take a vote. It was a CDD report that was circulated. If we can take up that item, if nobody wants to speak. Open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Thank you very much. If we can go back to item 10, I think is next.
Well, there are several
Should I take 'em
ordinances that were being
8,
held
9,
on
and
the
10.
desk. There's 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Item
'em
number
together?
9 was called special by Councilmember Perry, so that one can be held.
Okay.
Can we have 8, 9, and 10
Together.
held together?
You want to hold them on the table for now?
Well, Jan will be right back in 1 minute.
All right, if we can take up the next item then.
Okay, do you wish to take up then items 12, 13, 14, and 15? Those are ordinances also that were being held.
Yes, let's do that. Okay. Ms. Han. Chair recognizes Ms. Han. Ms. Han? Chair recognizes.
Are we on it?
This is for 10, 12.
Okay, my computer says items 13, 14.
Hold on one sec. Let's just go ahead. Okay, this is items 12, 13, 14, and 15, colleagues.
Okay, no.
Okay, so any colleagues wishing to be heard on those items? If not, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Those items are approved. Next items, please.
Item number 40 was called special by Councilmember Labange.
Why don't we hold that on the table?
Okay, item number 43 was called special by Councilmember Smith.
Councilmember Smith, item number 43 is before us. Recognize Mr. Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to bring this to the attention of the council and thank the committee chair for moving it along. This was a result of a case a couple years ago when a motorcyclist rammed through the guard gates at the Granada Hills Davis facility, decided to do a run around the facility and have a lot of fun. When the police who were there really responded, we found that there was no laws that prohibited them from attacking this facility or any other police or fire facility. in the light of 9/11, this is a really important ordinance to protect the people that protect us and to keep them as safe as we can, so that if anybody tries to attack or fool around with any of our police, fire facilities, we have an ordinance on the books that allows us to take them into custody, because right now there is no ordinance protecting our police and fire departments, in particular the Davis facility, which is the storage repository for all the city's armory for the police department. These are really critical for the protection of police and fire. So I urge your approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. Any other colleagues wishing to be heard? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, if you'll please open the roll on the item, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 eyes.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Labange is back. Why don't we? Okay, let's take up items 8, 9, and 10 together then as our next items, colleagues. Madam Clerk?
Items 8, 9, and 10 are all ordinances, and I believe item number 9 was called special by Councilmember Perry.
Great.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a technical amendment that the city attorney has asked me to introduce. She's right here talking to my neighbor to the right.
Okay.
Do you have the amendment?
That's been circulated?
Has the
Yes, a
amendment
new
been
ordinance
circulated?
has been distributed, and I believe
Okay.
there was just an addition of several words.
Okay, great.
And I would like to ask her just to explain the amendment and what words have been added.
Yes, I assume you're on item 9. The only amendment is a technical amendment. We've added to section B that the word illegally, so that the section now reads, any vehicle used to illegally acquire or attempt to illegally acquire any controlled substance is declared a nuisance. That's the amendment.
I believe I need a second on that.
Okay. Any motion in a second? Ms. Misikowski.
Members, I just wanted to highlight these. I know there's interest in various elements of these. These are the 3 ordinances that deal with the forfeiture of a vehicle used in the committing of specific crimes or activities that we find problems in our communities. The first is the one that the council had asked to be created for the forfeiture relative to solicitation of prostitution. That's item 8. Item 9 is the forfeiture of a vehicle, and that is why Ms. Perry had introduced that, relative to the acquiring illegally of controlled substances. And number 10 is the forfeiture of a vehicle that was used for illegal dumping in bulky items. This is not somebody who's going to throw a gum wrapper out the window and lose their vehicle over it. This is clearly defined, as the city attorney has worked out, for the dumping that does occur in some of our communities. I know these previously were before the council. The council asked that they be sent back and that the ordinances be prepared. We first did this, members, with Councilmember Gruhl for the forfeiture of vehicles that were used in the speed racing going on, particularly out in the northeastern parts of the valley. And it has been successful. It's a tool, a deterrent tool that the police department has requested and the city attorney has worked on. I think we need to get widespread information out about this to the community. I don't think we're going to see a high volume of them, because I think once word gets out that that the city of LA means business in enforcing its crimes against these kinds of incidents, they are going to have that deterrent effect. So that's, I think, just another tool, another element that we are giving to our agencies to be more effective in those areas where previously we've had trouble, because people haven't gotten the message that these kinds of things are not going to be tolerated in our community, and we mean to give effective enforcement tools to our law enforcement agencies to deal with these issues. So I do ask for an aye vote on these items.
Thank you, Ms. Misikowski. I have next Ms. Hahn, followed by Mr. Labange, Mr. Parks, Mr. Villaraigosa, Mr. Cardenas, Mr. Ludlow, and Mr. Zine. Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I am in favor of all 3 of these items, but I'm going to reserve my remarks for item 10. which is the motion that I introduced to include in these motions of seizing people's vehicles the problem that we have with illegal dumping. And I'm really pleased that this item is before us today. It was in February that I first called for this ordinance, and my communities particularly have been really anxiously awaiting this extra tool that we can use to hopefully detour and to prevent the kind of chronic dumping that is really plaguing our communities. This problem is a chronic problem. This is not a small issue where every once in a while we find trash littered on the streets. Particularly in Watts and Wilmington, I have alleys that are impassable. I have complete blocks of streets that are so full of chairs and couches and TVs. I have areas where construction material has been dumped. What we have are people who are going to construction sites. They're offering for a fee to clear a construction site, but instead of going to our city-sanctioned dumps, they're going to Watts and they're going to Wilmington. They're pocketing the fee from the construction site and then dumping in our alleys and our streets. We must crack down on these illegal dumpers. This is a huge problem that has not been able to be solved anywhere else. We have put signs saying no illegal dumping. We have offered $1,000 rewards for people who help us turn in these illegal dumpers. We have secret cameras that are patrolling alleys and underpasses. We have sting operations, but still this is a problem that is plaguing our communities. Our city spent close to $10 million cleaning up 120,000 cubic yards of debris in our city just last year. We need this ordinance. We need to send a strong message to illegal dumpers. This is a crime, and these are criminals who are really ruining our streets and our alleys. And in Los Angeles, car is king. You cannot operate in Los Angeles without a car. You're in a world of hurt if you don't have your car. And I think this punishment fits the crime exactly because these criminals are using their vehicles to completely ruin our decent neighborhoods, streets, and alleys. And you know, in Los Angeles, they're all looking at us. We set trends here in Los Angeles. And I've already heard from the City of Fullerton's Chief of Police. I've heard from Supervisor Don Knabe. I've heard from the City Attorney in Oakland. And I've heard from a municipal city attorney that represents about 10 cities around Los Angeles. They want a copy of our ordinance because they too believe it is a viable tool that they can use to prevent this kind of problem. We have an opportunity today to send a message. Our city streets are not dumping grounds. This is where people live. This is where people play. This is where kids go to school. This is not a place that we can allow any more further criminal, illegal dumping. I couldn't be happier that we're going to really have this enforcement tool that will be able to impound people's vehicles if they are caught illegally dumping in our communities and our neighborhoods. I ask for an aye vote on this issue.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Labange.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask that Captain Michael Downey, the commander of Hollywood area, join the table. And if you could hold my time, City Attorney Goldberg, you've done a wonderful job on this. The one thing that I always want to be as a representative is be fair, and you've articulated that in these activities. We're very firm with this, but could you please explain our policy as it relates to this law, which will become law?
As pertaining to the prostitution.
Fairness of taking the car and having a discussion if it's not the owner, if the owner is not there, etc.
The way the ordinance works is we provide all kinds of information when the vehicle is seized.
Pull it closer.
Closer. Okay, we do provide all kinds of information when the vehicle is seized to the individual who's driving the car. They get a claim form, they get a brochure, they get a receipt for the vehicle. The brochure invites them to call the city attorney's office, and most of them do. Thereafter, we meet with them and determine whether it was the registered owner who was driving the vehicle, whether there are any lien holders, and then according to all of those circumstances, most times we reach a settlement with the individual. Also, the ordinances that you have today have a provision in there that if the court finds that the claimant did not know that the vehicle was being used for an illegal purpose, then the court has the discretion to have a different distribution of the funds. In other words, the interest of an innocent owner is protected under these ordinances.
Thank you. Members, I just wanted to say that there was a community meeting that Captain Mike Downing had that I was at, and this was several months ago, years ago. This proposal was kind of going through the channels, and I took a hold of it and was able to bring it forth for the first initial. I really want to thank Sergeant Alan Hamilton of Hollywood area and Captain Mike Downing of Hollywood area for your leadership on this and working with my office and my staff in creating this. I also want to thank Rocky Delgadillo and Ms. Goldberg and all the city attorney's office for your focus on this, because it is a new tool that we're using. It is a new tool that we're using to have respect for neighborhoods. When Janice talked about people dumping in Watts, it's people coming from outside the city and dumping into a neighborhood. I have a dumping problem off of San Fernando Road on Durand Street. The people come from Glendale or Burbank. I'm sure you find that in other locations where they come into edges of the city. That dumping ordinance that Janice put in there is very good. The anti-John law that was recommended by Hollywood area to combat the terrible vice problem that plagues Sunset Boulevard and Santa Monica Boulevard and other parts of the Hollywood area is an effective tool. Captain Downey, give us a brief report.
Well, since the ordinance was voted in, we've done 3 operations and seized 36 cars. It's had a huge effect, but what we would like to do is do more of these operations. And in supporting the communities, it's elevated the spirit of the community to show that the city does care about this. It has raised the ethical stature of the community so that Johns are more inhibited from driving into the area. And if we go to this next area where we're talking about pimping and pandering, those people that are exploiting women and children, putting them on the street, making them work in horrible conditions, inhumane conditions, it'll directly impact that as well, because it'll inhibit and deter the pimps and panderers from recruiting young women and children and forcing them to go out on the street and work.
Captain, yesterday you and I and Councilmember Garcetti were at a meeting at Hollywood High School, and the student leadership class was predominantly made up of young girls from Hollywood High School, expressed the challenge of even walking to school without getting hassled by people in automobiles. This is another effective tool that will help abate that problem, correct?
Absolutely will.
Good, and he's committed to it. Members, I've just can tell you enough is when we go to community meetings and go out in the neighborhoods and listen to the people, ideas happen. Ideas happen, and it happened at 6501 Fountain coming out of the Hollywood South Municipal Building, where the captain and the sergeant and staff and myself all kicked us around, and all of a sudden this thing, this tool, this effective tool has roots in it, and it's growing deep. We always want to be fair to people because it's very serious, as Ms. Hahn said, about car is king in Los Angeles. But we want people to respect neighborhoods, respect them from not dumping or illegal drugs or a violent activity or prostitution. These are quality of life issues that affect people, how they feel about their neighborhood if they walk and enjoy. And as I always say, it's important to get out and enjoy your neighborhood, and doing this will allow people to get out and enjoy their neighborhood more, because it will combat the problem of those who have such a terrible attitude to disrespect neighborhoods of Los Angeles. I just want to thank our great city attorney, Greenberg, and I wanted to correct that because I mispronounced it. And also I want to thank again Mike Downey, the captain, and Sergeant Hamilton at Hollywood for their dedication. And also I want to thank Cindy Misikowski's staff and Cindy for her work on this, because it took a while for all of us to come together, but we're at that point.
Thank you, Mr.
I thank
Labange.
you, and everybody else thanks you on Sunset Boulevard.
Mr. Villaraigosa.
Yes, Mr. President, members, I'd like to hold my time and ask a couple of questions of the city attorney. What are the current penalties for item number 10, the ban on dumping?
For illegal dumping, the state penalties start out...
Bulky item dumping, of course, which is...
Right. The penalties at the state level start out as infractions, and then if there's dumping in certain areas, then the penalties increase and largely the fines increase.
What are those areas?
Dumping in sewers, dumping in theaters or places of public assemblages. But I'm told that the city departments use a local ordinance, a city ordinance, which makes it a misdemeanor to throw any rubbish and that in an improper place, and that is a misdemeanor punishable by 6 months and $1,000 fine.
So it's currently a misdemeanor as applied by the city. State, it's an infraction.
Starts out as an infraction.
Starts out as an infraction. Now, do we also give tickets for this activity?
Tickets meaning citations?
Yes.
I believe that there should be somebody from street use here today.
Bill Robertson. Bureau of Street Services.
So they can respond to that
Executive
question.
Director.
Two dapper gentlemen, come on in. Join us.
Good
Do we
morning,
give
Mr. President.
citations for this activity?
For illegal dumping, and I want to clarify what the city attorney said, there are different laws related to stormwater issues, dumping into the sewers, those kinds of things. The ordinance that we enforce is directly related to illegal dumping of bulky items, trash, in the public right-of-way. We cite the individual, we have the arrest powers, we arrest that individual, and as the city attorney stated, that is 6 months or $1,000 fine. We've worked very hard with the neighborhood prosecutors to get the maximum, which usually is the $1,000 fine. Then also we go after restitution of what it costs the city for the actual dumping. And then we further ask that they do some type of community service. We utilize those people on our illegal sign program.
So currently we go for the maximum, the $1,000 fine. We ask for restitution for the costs incurred by the city, and we ask for service, community service, so that they get a feel for what it's like to clean up the mess. I like that. Those are, I think, important concepts in the law of equity. Let me ask you a couple of other questions, and if you could stay here for a moment. Do you have to be, as I understand it, in order to arrest someone for a misdemeanor, a police officer has to be present? Is that correct?
Yes, the misdemeanor has to be committed in the officer's presence.
So someone couldn't have reported to a police officer that someone dumped illegally. They would have had to have, the officer, him or herself, would have had to have seen it. Is that correct?
Well, the individual who observed the misdemeanor could make a private person's arrest, but in order for the officer to make an arrest, they would have to have witnessed the misdemeanor.
So under this statute, which would allow for the forfeiture of a vehicle, does the officer and/or a private person qualify as the person that has to have witnessed this incident? Or could someone have just, for instance, reported it to an officer, and an officer then arrests, arrests and/or forfeits this?
It would be a question of proof. All of the forfeitures that we have done have been based on officer observations, and we would prefer not to take a vehicle unless it was witnessed by a public agency, either city department or, which was either street use or a police officer.
Would this ordinance allow you to take someone's vehicle if an officer did not witness?
Well, the ordinance basically states that any vehicle used for the purpose of illegal dumping is a nuisance, and the vehicle shall be enjoined and abated as provided in this section. And then it authorizes seizure only by peace officers or authorized public officers.
So under this ordinance, an officer would have had to have seen this incident
In order to seize the vehicle,
in order to
yes.
seize the vehicle. Now, what about, are there any other municipalities in the nation that has an ordinance like this one?
I'm aware of the city of Riverside. I believe they have a forfeiture ordinance for illegal dumping.
For illegal dumping. On my own time, members, asset forfeiture, members, is a very serious matter. In fact, it's only been used recently for drug activity, for serious criminal activity, breaking the law. And here in the city of Los Angeles, we believe that we should be able to use it for prostitution and some of those quality of life issues. I understand full well what Council Member Hahn and Labange have stated. I'm actually live in one of those communities where people come from far away, some of the outlying areas, to dump. They dump in the 14th Councilmanic District. I'd like to see, while I can support the first two ordinances, I think they speak to prostitution, pandering, the sale of controlled substances and drugs. That makes sense here. With respect to illegal dumping, I'd like us to think about maybe a little bit of some amendments here. One, I'd like to see us limit this to commercial vehicles. Two, we can impound private vehicles. What that would do is it sends the message that this is a serious activity. Your car will be impounded as a private citizen if you engage this, but it doesn't put this on the level of selling drugs, put this on the level of engaging in prostitution. I think this is a very serious matter. I'd like to study all three of these ordinance, members. It may work, but maybe it doesn't. This is a very serious, when you engage in asset forfeiture, you're engaging in a very serious activity. You're taking someone's private property. I think if we did that, it would make all of these stronger ordinances. They make sense to people. They address the issue that Council Member Hahn has put on the forefront, that we have to deal with these quality of life issues, but it differentiates between selling drugs, engaging in prostitution, and dumping, which I think, while all important, are different in terms of their quality and their severity. So, members, I would ask you to think about on the third ordinance to amend this, to limit it to commercial vehicles, to impound the private vehicles, and then study all three of the ordinances.
Thank you, Mr. Villaraigosa. Is that a motion?
Yes, it is.
Is there a second? Mr. White seconds, and the next speaker will be Mr. Cardenas.
It's already law. So how does that affect what Mr. Villaraigosa said?
Okay.
Well, with number 9,
the
only thing that would be added was that we would evaluate number 9. It wouldn't do anything.
It's just seeking the study element of.
Hey, the prostitution one.
Point of order, I think what Mr. Villaraigosa means when he says study it is if the other one's going to effect, to have a study reported back in about 6 months, how effective they've been, not study it, delay implementation.
Right,
but
exactly
study
right.
it after implementation.
Yes.
So I think 8 and 9 he's suggesting go forward, and then a report come back and consider amendments to 10.
Okay, if there's any further questions at this time, I'll ask members to press their buttons. We do have 8 members wishing to be heard. Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm not going to speak to item 8 or 9. I'd like to speak to item number 10. What kind of education goes on to the individuals that have been caught illegally dumping? Are they required to take, like traffic school type of thing? I mean, are they educated to the point where you tell them, hey, you don't have to go dump the couch around the corner. You can call the city and they'll pick it up for free, that kind of thing.
Basically, the Department of Public Works, through their PAO, their Public Affairs Officer, does a great deal of community outreach on the illegal dumping problem. We talk about the fact that we do have our sister bureau, sanitation, has the bulky item pickup. We now have one drop-off center, and we're looking to establish another one in Watts.
My question is this communicated to the violator, the person who's being prosecuted, the person who's been caught illegally dumping in the item that we're talking about today?
Only after the fact.
After the fact.
After
So
the fact.
education is part of it? What, is it an informal education? You give them a little brochure, or you make them sit down in a room like they do in traffic school, and, you know, they look at gross pictures of illegal dumping or something to scare them into going straight? What
No,
do you
it's
do?
informal. It's informal at this time, yes.
It's informal? Well, I'd like to make a motion, in addition to Mr. Villaraigosa's motion, that we look into the cost effectiveness of actually educating these folks, and perhaps something along the lines to find out if we're going to have to enforce this, and part of the penalty go toward the education component or what have you. The reason for that, members, is because I think one of the problems that we have is chronic ignorance. A lot of people just don't understand a lot of the services that the City of Los Angeles affords our constituents, and unfortunately, they engage themselves in illegal activity, all too often innocently, not realizing that they didn't even have to go that route or even contemplate that, because we actually have some services available to them. So I'd like to make a motion that we also not only look into what Mr. Villaraigosa was talking about, but also we look into how we can more formalize this education component so we don't have repeat offenders and we don't have this problem being chronic amongst people who, quite frankly, might not do it a second time if they just understood a little bit more about what we can afford them.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. Mr. Dudlow has seconded that. Chair recognizes Mr. Dudlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, also, I want to take a moment just to express my support on items 8 and 9 initially, and both council members Labange, Garcetti, and Perry, who have brought this forward. And on item 10, just reading through this, on first blush, it does raise some of the concerns that one would ask, but I think as you read through this ordinance, it really does provide what I think is going to be some very strong teeth to a problem that's happening throughout Los Angeles. And I don't want to, obviously everything's been said. I guess everybody hasn't said it yet. I don't want to go through that whole thing. I do want to rise in support, but I have a couple of questions. And if there is something in item 8, in section H, if I could ask the city attorney in section H, and as you're looking at this, I subscribe to the broken windows theory. I really do believe that this level of dumping, this level of criminal activity, and I think most of this is commercialized criminal activity where people are preying on individuals, they're charging them fees, and then they're taking truckloads of bulky trash items, and they're preying on poor neighborhoods. And it can happen anywhere in Los Angeles, and I think what that message sends is that when other criminals see neighborhoods that have a lot of trash and a lot of debris, they assume nobody's watching the area, and that's a good place to start selling narcotics, engaging in prostitution, and continuing the cycle that I think most of us would argue under the broken windows theory is pretty easy to understand in this notion. Let me ask just a question on the stolen vehicles item, because this does rise. I think Mr. Villaraigosa is asking a couple of good questions. One area of concern I have on any of these items, 8, 9, and 10, is in the instance of a stolen vehicle. And if you could just hold my time. Under this item, it indicates that I have 30 days to claim my vehicle if it's been seized. And if I don't, it's forfeited. And the only thing that I wanted to raise about that is, unfortunately, I've had 3 cars stolen. And in 2 of those cases, it took almost 60 days for me to get my car back. And I just wanted to ask the question whether or not forfeiture, I'm supportive of seizure. I'm totally supportive of seizure. But whether or not we could amend that to allow for a little bit additional time, maybe it's 60, maybe it's 90 days for the actual forfeiture to go forward. And I just wanted to get your opinion on that, City Attorney, what that would do to us and whether or not there's some reason to look at that item. Because again, that is a different question in terms of forfeiture.
Yeah, we can look at that. 30 days from the seizure might be a little less because we would have to notify them of the fact that the vehicle had been seized, and usually that's done pretty quickly, usually within a couple of days of the seizure. So they have about probably 25 days or so within which to redeem the vehicle. Now, I don't know what the delay was in getting your vehicle back, but we can increase this amount.
I can tell you,
yes.
it literally was, from the day it was stolen, I notified the police department my car's been stolen. It was recovered, in one case, 45 days later.
Right, but this would be 30 days from the seizure, not from the time your car was stolen, but from the time that we seized it and then notified you, and then you would have, after that, about 25 days or so in which to get your vehicle back.
So the theory would, I guess the theory would apply then that if it was seized by LAPD, it's been found.
Yes.
The notification in this is going to be sufficient that, Mr. Ludlow, your stolen vehicle has been identified, and
Come get it.
come verify that you weren't the one dumping, right?
No, just...
Come get it.
Yeah, we would know that you weren't the one dumping because you'd reported it stolen and you weren't the one who was picked up, so we would know it wasn't you, and you would have, like I said, 25 days. Most people want that car back very quickly because...
Safe to assume? Okay.
Because the tow and storage charges are accumulating every day.
I'm sure there's a logical connection here, and I think you've explained it. So, just again on the seizure side or the forfeiture side, the seizure would happen immediately when the dumping
Yes.
was identified or the arrest was made, theoretically.
Yes, they observe the dumping taking place. At that point, the person is arrested, the vehicle is seized.
And you can't imagine any circumstance where my stolen vehicle, I would not be notified within that 30-day period that we have found your vehicle. It was actually just involved in a crime, and we'd like you to come get it. You don't see any circumstance where that would take more than 30 days.
Oh, no, the registered owner has to be notified within 2 business days by LAPD, and then following that, the city attorney sends out another notice, usually within a week.
And Captain Downing, if I could ask you the same question. I mean, just in everyday layperson's terminology,
Right.
You can't see an example, I'm out of state for 3 weeks or whatever. It's pretty inconceivable that you would not be able to
No,
connect.
from the time the vehicle is stolen until the time it is impounded or seized has no bearing on the 30 days. But from the time it is seized, you're immediately notified. The only thing I could possibly think is if you took a 6-week vacation in Europe and you didn't have access to your mail, and you didn't have anybody in town that would accept your mail and be able to act on it. But on the other hand, if you knew your car was stolen, you'd probably put some...
And again, members, obviously, and I'm sure most of you have already thought through this, but my issue is clearly not with the issue of seizure. It's with the issue of forfeiture and whether or not the innocent victim gets punished twice. Their car was stolen and then it is seized and forfeited by the city. So if we feel that it's a pretty extreme situation where the owner of a car wouldn't give up that vehicle, that we would be able to notify them within 30 days, then I'd support this. But I want to just make sure that we don't put somebody in a situation where they're being victimized once by a thug that stole their car, and then secondly by the city of LA that forfeited and sold it.
Thank you, Mr. Little. I'll ask you to press your button again. Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. The item number 8, prostitution and pandering, and number 9, controlled substance, and then number 10, there's a statement in here, public officers. Now, public officers are not necessarily police officers. Is item number 10 expanding the authority to public officers, which is a different category than police officers?
Yes, in 10, there are additional employees who are authorized to seize the vehicle.
And who are those public officers?
Those are individuals who are employed by the city's street services department. They're defined in this section that's being amended.
So they're not police officers, but they are identified as public officers, so they would have the authority as a police officer would in this particular category on the dumping of trash.
Yes, that is only for the dumping ordinance.
Okay. And the question regarding Councilmember Ludlow, notification goes out to the registered owner. One of the problems oftentimes is the registered owner has sold the car to someone else, hasn't been re-registered. So oftentimes, if they don't comply with the rule to re-register, it's going to go to the person who's already sold the car. They may just throw it away saying, I don't own the car anymore, it's not my problem. So RO is critical that information, and the police department can only send to what is on file at DMV, and what's on file at DMV is registered owner. The issue that's brought up about dumping, I think it's common decency and knowledge. You don't dump trash in a public arena. I mean, that's what we have trash cans for. It doesn't matter, I don't think, where you're from. You just don't dump trash. I know in the valley people dump couches in front of apartment buildings, but they're not dumping, as I saw on television, you and your brother, the mayor, in an incident down in South Los Angeles where they had heaps of trash that were dumped, and the residents obviously very concerned. Fortunately, we don't have that same situation all over the city, but I know the problem exists in certain portions of the city, and I'm very sensitive to that. The 120,000 cubic yards is a tremendous load for the city to pick up and dispose of. When it comes to, and Councilmember Villalobos mentioned this, as someone who has a car and they dump a bag of trash, they would be following under this guideline where we could take that vehicle, versus someone in a pickup truck or someone in a dump truck. I know that when it comes to enforcement, we set up policy and then we give law enforcement the tools to do the job. I want to make sure that what we're sending out is, if someone dumps a bag of trash, we don't think that that car should be impounded. Even though it's wrong, it's illegal. But when someone's got a dump truck or a pickup truck and they're dumping loads of materials, that situation, I believe it should be impounded. What about the discretion of the officers? Once this rule is in place, someone pulls up in a car and takes a bag of trash and throws it out in that alley that already has other trash. Under this rule, that car could be impounded and seized and confiscated. How do we safeguard that? I'm not saying the person shouldn't receive a citation or receive some kind of punishment, but I think the gradual effort to enforce, we're taking the prostitutes, the pimping, the pandering, the drug dealers, the street racers, the trash. I mean, we're going to clean up congestion on the road if nothing else, but at the same time, people do have not a right but a privilege to operate a vehicle. What safeguards do we have?
I think you're absolutely right, Councilmember Zine, and currently under the current ordinance, when we do our surveillance and we make arrests, we don't arrest everybody that dumps illegally on the street. Again, it goes to the officer's discretion of what is illegal dumping. Many times if somebody pulls up in a car, takes out a bag of trash and drops it, we photograph them, we apprehend them, we talk to them, and we'll notice them for a violation and release them.
Okay.
The people we're focusing on, and I want to make this very clear because I don't think we really see the size of this problem. We've made 114 arrests from January, 114 arrests for illegal dumping. 95% of those arrests are citizens of another city other than Los Angeles. We're getting debris, we're getting truckloads of mattresses, construction debris brought into the city of Los Angeles and dumped in our streets. On Doran Avenue that Councilmember Labange mentioned, we've made 47 arrests at one location in the city. It's right on the border of Burbank, and we get people, Glendale, 47 arrests, we've prosecuted them, we've fined them, we've done everything we can, and yet the word is not out there, it's just a slap on the wrist. And until we start impounding some vehicles and putting the hurt on these individuals, it's going to continue.
Well, I agree with you, but my question is, how do we assure that the enforcement won't take, for example, someone who wants to stretch it, an enforcement officer, a public officer who says, well, you dumped your lunch bag out of the car and we're going to confiscate your car. We need to make sure there's safeguards. The ones you're talking about, everyone agreed, they should be confiscated. But what safeguards are there for the other one where a public officer doesn't want to use common sense, and we know sometimes that occurs? What are we going to do?
But
how do we handle it?
Councilmember, if I could respond, the ordinance specifically excludes minor littering. And so if you did throw a lunch bag or a soda can or something like that, newspaper out of your vehicle, we can't take the vehicle for that because there's an exclusion for minor littering.
What's minor littering? I'm just talking about common sense. What you're talking about, I agree with. Common littering could be interpreted different ways by different people. I just want to make sure it's not abused, that it's used properly. Right. That's the issue.
Well, you know,
it's... Again, Mr. Zine. Ms. Gould.
Thank you. If you'd like to respond real quickly to that. It sounded like you did.
Essentially, the exemption is for the discarding, dropping, or scattering of small quantities of waste matter ordinarily carried on or about the person. So people don't use vehicles for illegal dumping unless it's a large quantity. If it's something that's small that they can carry about them, they don't need a vehicle to dump. So,
And I think that the difference here, and I'm standing in support of Councilmember Hahn's motion today, the ordinance, because I similarly have several areas of my district where illegal dumping happens, and that we do need to send a clear message that just damages the quality of life for all of our other residents. We're not talking about someone, and I have many of these in my district, where apartment owners or apartment tenants take particularly their couch or their mattress out. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about people who get in their vehicles, drive their stuff to another location, and that's really important. And we do need an educational process. And we've been trying, and many of my colleagues have done the same. We've had a bulky item pickup day in my neighborhood. We've taken flyers around. We've been telling people we want to work with the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles to talk to their members who own those apartments to try to educate people that they don't just have to put it on the street. They can call someone who will pick it up. But I think we want to make the distinction here is that we're talking about people who are taking it in their vehicle from their own neighborhood, who they don't want to have it out on their street, and taking it somewhere else. And so I think we need to make that distinction today. And we have had on the, particularly with the the seizure of street racers, we had recently a press conference almost a month or so ago. Councilmember Cardenas was there, Councilmember Zine was there as well, where we were able to take 2 vehicles. And I haven't heard since then that we've had a lot of problems in street racing in certain neighborhoods. People get the message. We have to hit them in the place in which matters most, which unfortunately in Los Angeles are their vehicles. And so I think, yes, it is something that people value. It's something that is hard to take away from someone, but people know they're doing something illegal when they do it, and it's not the people who just take it outside their apartment building and put their couch there. That's a different type of individual, and I think I trust our police officers, who it sounds like are going to make the judgment call whether or not it is just someone who dumped something on their way to their next place, or someone who is doing this purposefully, etc. So I think we can have the city attorney and the police department with Public Works to do that. So I stand in support today.
Mr. Smith.
A couple questions, and I think Mr. Zine really hit on the issues and concerns I had. And I didn't hear all the explanations, so Madam City Attorney, if you tell me, when an officer sees a case of dumping going on, and it's in between what you consider a real big load of stuff and something that's small, scatterable, is there 2 separate sections that they would cite under if it was just littering versus illegal dumping?
well, there is a state section that they could use for littering if they wanted to, and that's up to the department how they choose to address it.
So we leave it up to officer discretion on which section they would file it under or cite under?
They do now, yes, they use their discretion, I'm sure, depending upon the amount that's discarded.
But we have no set guidelines on that.
The department would have to address that.
Okay, please.
In the Bureau of
Hold my
Street
time, please.
Bureau of Street Services, we do have a policy regarding that. With littering violations, we cite the individual under the penal code section. We define litter the way the penal code does. It makes a specific definition in section 374.4. We follow the state guidelines for litter, and we only make the arrest when the threshold is met and we have actual illegal dumping.
And what is that threshold?
The state defines it as something that can't be carried on or about the person or would be normally carried in a vehicle. So the trash has to exceed, we talk about a bag of trash, we look for more than that. We look for something that is purely dumping. If we just have a bag of household trash, that would be photographed and cited as a littering violation.
Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, and I hadn't heard that. You've really defined it so that we know that we're not going to be out there taking cars from people that just do something stupid versus someone who's intentionally out there littering our streets. And that's the fine line that I don't think anyone got to yet, but we need to. That's the critical point. Finally, just for matters to concur with what Bill had said, A couple years ago, we had an instance in my district, and as a reserve officer, I went out with your department in a task force, and over a 3-day period of time, I made 8 arrests for illegal dumping. 6 of the 8 were professional corporations, all outside the city limits, Simi Valley and Santa Clarita, roofers with huge loads of roofing material. They had charged the citizens $600 to take it to the dump, and they dumped it on our streets because they thought they'd get away with it. But the problem is, we trust maybe too much that the judges will help us, because in all cases, they fined them $1,000 but did not get restitution, nor did they get any community service out of them. And so, I don't know how we can instruct our city attorney to go full bore on all of these cases and not settle for anything less than restitution for sure, and get the maximum fine on. We just need to really make this a priority if we pass this law. We're going to do this, get everything we can out of it, and take those cars away then, because that's critical that we do that. And I'm glad to say in all 8 of those cases, we won all 8 of them, which thank you to the city attorney for that. We need the officer, officer at the scene. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bill, for your work, too.
Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I have a quick question. Hold my time while I ask it. In my district, in the Goodyear Tract, and many of you are familiar with that area, it's an area that has enormous amounts of illegal dumping. And the people who are doing the dumping usually have some relationship, whether it's on the books or off the books, with the tire recyclers in that area. And I would dare say that most of the people who are doing that are off the books. So I'm wondering how, within the working definition of commercial activity, how are we going to capture or prosecute people who don't show up anywhere? You know, they're dealing in cash, it's somebody who's gotten off the street corner, they're working for someone. But how will this address that need? Of my time.
For us, the key issue is that what they're dumping is commercial type rubbish. So the fact that they're dumping tires is significant enough for us to make it a commercial dumping case versus just littering.
Okay, so then if somebody says, I'm just on my own, man, you know, the tire recyclers say, I'm going to give you $50 cash, you take care of it, I don't care what you do, don't tell me about it, and they get caught, and they've been told to say, I'm not dumping, I'm just a guy carrying some tires around, you know.
By the definition in the penal code, that would not be sufficient. The fact that they have a load of tires, and generally we're talking about more than just 4 tires that would come off of their own vehicle. They have enough tires to meet the definition of commercial rubbish. The fact that they deny it is not legally an issue with us as far as our charging commercial dumping or seizing a vehicle.
Oh, okay, thank you. One other quick question that Councilmember Parks wanted me to ask. If I think Councilwoman Hahn could explain to the public by the end of this what the appeal process would be, so the public understands there is an appeal process. Okay.
Mr. Weiss.
Mr. President, I call a question on the entire matter.
Okay, previous question has been called. We have 4 members waiting to be heard. Let's open the roll on the previous question. Roll is open. Please close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
6 ayes, 6 noes.
Okay, doesn't carry. Ms. Hahn.
Mr. President, and the reason I didn't want the debate to end yet was because I just feel a couple more points need to be made, particularly about item 10. And while I appreciate, Mr. Villagrosa, your suggestion that we only limit to commercial vehicles, I think that's the wrong approach right now. And while I appreciate Mr. Cardenas' idea that we need to do more educating. Sure, we need to do more educating. We need to have more bulky item pickups. I want to work with recycling centers because some of these people are taking a truckload of recycling, what they think are recyclables, taking them to our local recycling centers, and then realizing that they're only going to be able to leave about half of it that is accepted at the recycling center, and they take the rest of it and they dump it in my alleys in Watts. Why don't we work with recycling centers and see if they'll consider putting putting a large bin there where people can dump the rest of their stuff and sanitation could go to the recycling centers and pick up on a regular basis. That's still better than dumping in my alleys. But you know what? It is not about educating these people. These people know what they're doing. They're criminals. They're coming into Watts, they're coming into Wilmington, and they know exactly what they're doing. That's why they come at 2 o'clock in the morning and they dump under a dark underpass. They know what they're doing. And they're dumping in a community that historically has been dumped on a number of levels. This is a community that cannot thrive, colleagues. This is a community that cannot hope for economic development because their streets and their alleys look like the S word. And when I bring people into those communities to say, why don't you invest in my community? Why don't you bring jobs to my community? Why don't you consider building something in my community? They take one drive through the community and they say, we're not going to invest here. We're not going to bring jobs here. This place is a mess. This place is blighted. It's neglected. And this is a crime against the people who live in Watts. They cannot hope to have the promises that the rest of the people have if their alleys are littered, their streets are dumped on, and their children literally have to walk through piles. I think you all don't know what this problem is. I think you're not even aware of what it is, and Bill will tell you. These are heaps, piles of trash and furniture and construction material. They're taking our public streets and making them impassable. They're causing rodent problems. They're causing so many problems that these community members do not deserve to live with. I need your support on this one. I need you to help me on this one. I want to cast that net as wide as we can cast it. Commercial vehicles, private vehicles, anybody who comes into our community and knows what they're doing and illegally dumps trash in our neighborhoods deserves to have their vehicle impounded, seized, and sold. But I will agree with you, Martin, we should extend it to 60 days so to give them more time. But they're not the innocent victims. And occasionally if we get one wrong car and we sell it, okay. But let me tell you, the innocent victims are the people who have lived in these communities for so long and are begging us to try to stop this problem. Nothing else has worked. Let's try this. Let's send a tough message, private or commercial. If you dump in our communities, we will see you, we will catch you, and we will take your vehicle. And I'm happy to look at this law in a year. I'm happy to look at this and see what's happened. And if we find that we've got too many innocent victims that are losing their cars, let's relook at it. Let's start tough. Let's start big. Let's send a message that you cannot commit this crime. And this crime, in my opinion, is as serious as drug dealing. It has that kind of effect on a community. It keeps people oppressed in a way that you and I would not live with.
Thank you. Mr. Labange.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to follow exactly what Janice was saying. It's an absolutely quality of life issue on dumping. I'm very proud of what you have in your district on Washington Boulevard and Soto, what Councilman Pacheco organized with Homeboy Industries. I've gone there myself from Silver Lake with paint and other matters on special cleanups, and I've seen everybody working. Every district should have that. I know you want a city facility in your area so that we can have the drop-off so people don't dump in the neighborhoods. I had a fabulous day several years ago when I was in Lincoln Heights. It was after a disturbance in Lincoln Heights. I was working for Mayor Reardon then. It was off of Griffith Avenue. I went up in the hill to make sure things were getting back to calm and normal, and I saw a guy illegally dumping. And I rolled down the window of my city car and I told him, hey, you can't do that. And sure enough, the guy stopped dumping. But then I looked in my rearview mirror and there was Mike Green, Sergeant of Metropolitan Division, right behind me. It was the police department that made that guy stop illegal dumping. I thought it was me for the moment. I had a great moment. That's why we need a tough law. That's what we need is a very tough law, and is to have respect for neighborhoods. And Councilmember Smith, who worked diligently for the people of the 12th District and also the San Fernando Valley. 6 out of 8 people took money from somebody else to pay for tipping fees at a local landfill and then came into Los Angeles because they say you can do it in L.A. You can get by in L.A. Let's not have that. Let's raise the standard of Los Angeles. 47 people came into Duran Street and San Fernando Road in a wonderful part of Los Angeles, except it gets dumped on by people. And our Public Works Department were Action Jackson and took action and went after 47 people. And now they're going to be tougher so those 47 don't come there anymore. So members, I think it's extremely important that we move the committee report and help make Los Angeles beautiful again by getting tough on all these activities that affect the quality of life. I want to thank all the members again who've been responsible for this. And Ms. Greenberg, thank you again. And I also want to say, because I've worked closely with the city attorney's office, and I understand your concern, Antonio. The city attorney is very wide and has a heart. The city attorney does have a heart. They look at these issues. When we had these actions in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard, there were certain cases that warranted the city attorney to exercise their wide heart. But the law needs to be there. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ludlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's tough to follow Janice and Tom after that. Just a couple of quick things. At some point, we ought to, members, have this discussion on the controlled substance with respect to homes. I'd like to see this city get tougher on crack houses, and I think that's something that you'll see a lot of support from neighborhoods and neighborhood-based organizations for people who've been subject to having to live next to crack houses, and they continue to go through this maze of regulations on how long does it take to seize a house and so forth. So anyway, having said that, 3 quick questions. Posting. Is there any additional provisions that could be made available? How do we begin to notify? Because I think the spirit of Ms. Hahn's ordinance here is to prevent dumping. And so is there something that we can do to change the posting in certain parts of the city that are particularly subject to this, and to let people know up there you will lose your vehicle? Is that something that we can do? Something we can look at least? Yeah, we need big...
We currently post illegal dumping signage that warns of surveillance and warns of our cameras. We will add the verbiage about the seizing of vehicles if the ordinance is passed.
Okay. That's great, because I think that can go a long ways. I think Tom's point, people hear it and they see it and they know that you're engaging them, they're gonna stop. Secondly, I mentioned it, and Ms. Hahn was good enough to support this. I would like to see us extend the forfeiture component to 60 days. That doesn't change anything that we're doing here in terms of cracking down right away, seizing a vehicle right away, punishing those people who are guilty, but it would be a small area of protection for people who may have DMV problems, or there may have been a stolen vehicle issue and it just hasn't gone through the registration process. I know some of the members, former law enforcement members on the council, seem to think that would be fair. Members would like to turn that into a motion, and I'm actually hopeful that Ms. Hahn would support that as an amendment to this, that the forfeiture component be 60 days.
For clarification, that would be for 8, 9, and 10.
I think it makes sense in all 3. I completely agree with you, City
Changing the section H pertaining to stolen vehicles from 30 to 60 days.
Correct.
Very well.
That's in section H.
Thank you, Mr. Ludlow.
Just a question on that. Do we then charge by the day that the car is there?
Yes, the storage charges would continue to accumulate. But like I said, the notices go out very quickly, so this just gives them more time to redeem their vehicle.
Point of order, I'd just like to clarify that although storage charges accumulate per day, if the car is stolen, insurance companies pay for the storage car. So the only one that you get the bill is if it's your car and you lend it to somebody in your family who wasn't doing this. But a stolen car, car.
And I know that Captain wanted to add one point to that. and I have
Just a point of
last follow-up.
clarification to Councilman Zine's comment about the stolen car and DMV problems. If the car is stolen, the officers in the recovery will realize who the stolen party was, and in addition to the legal owner, the registered owner, they will also contact the reporting the stolen, that it is impounded. So that's another safeguard for the system.
And just in this narrow area of the extreme example of where somebody has a stolen car, just a question, I didn't see it in here, is there a fine? I mean, let's just assume that the car is stolen and the car is recovered. The perpetrator doesn't lose anything by losing the car because it's not his or her car anyway. I know we're going to deal with them on auto theft, but is there another crime that gets added to the list here?
Certainly, there would be, joyriding would be the least of the crimes that the person would be arrested for.
I think Mr. Ludlow's question was...
And for the dumping, well...
That's the one. That's the one. Mr. Cardenas.
Is there an option available to us to, at the expense of the person who violated this ordinance, to, if they're a contractor per se, they're say a state licensed contractor, for us to advertise their violation at their expense in contractors' publications, for example?
Well, this ordinance does not deal with that. I mean, this is strictly a forfeiture ordinance, but...
I'm talking about item 10.
Right, item 10...
but what I'm saying is item 10 does allow us to have them, we impound the vehicle,
Yes.
right? They could forfeit it if they don't pick it up on time,
Yes.
correct? And if they do come in to get their vehicle, then I thought you mentioned earlier that you negotiate whether it's going to be a fine or what have you.
Yes,
That's
we
going to be
do.
imposed on them. Can we impose on them, included in that amount, what it costs us to advertise their violation in one of their, say, the Contractors Weekly or whatever people publish in that industry? If it's a contractor, for example.
Right. I mean, the ordinance doesn't distinguish between different categories of individuals. The funds from this ordinance, if the vehicle is sold, go to the general fund. And so the council could do whatever it wished to do with those funds.
Okay, so my question is this. Do we have available to us to make such an ordinance where we can specifically say, for example, we're going to charge people an additional $250 so that we can go out and publish their violation in a publication if they're a licensed contractor?
Right. This ordinance doesn't seek to really punish the conduct. It really just takes the vehicle. I mean, this is strictly, the only equity or what we can pursue is all in the vehicle. So any funds we recover have to be through the sale of the vehicle or through settlement. But again, it's all very property-based. It's just based on the vehicle itself, not on whether the person is a contractor or not a contractor. But like I said, the funds are in the general fund, so if you wanted to advertise in some publication, you could allocate funds for that purpose.
So my question is again, do we as a city have the authority to pass an ordinance when somebody is caught in this kind of violation of illegal dumping to require them to pay us to take that secondary action that I just described?
We could look at amending the ordinance, which specifically deals with the dumping itself and not the vehicle. In other words, there is, I think it's 66.25, which punishes illegal dumping. We could look at amending that.
Thank you.
Ms. Miskowski for a second time.
I was just going to, I think Mr. Cardenas's approach is viable. The answer is yes, we can do that. The suggestion is, let's bring in a motion, let's look at other types of punishment that we might want to use, other than just this. I mean, that's saying, let's pass this, because I think there's a strong sentiment for it, but let's look at other things to really get at the heart of the problem. That is one. The other place we can do is that although this is a forfeiture asset with the funds to go to the general fund, the city attorney will recover the cost of the city attorney processing of it. So that already is allocated. We could make a recovery of that forfeiture asset account the something to be in a notice published up, the county on closing down restaurants. It's published in every LA Times, however often they do it, quarterly or otherwise. So we could find an appropriate publication for those who really are the ones who are doing it with real criminal intent, that is taking money to do something and having a license perceived to be defrauding, actually, the customer from whom they're taking this stuff and saying they're going to go do good things and do it legally. And here you've got people, clients out there who are hiring these people saying, you take responsibility, they say, I will, and then they're not doing it. So yes, I think we can add those kinds of things to our code and our ordinances, and I'd be happy with you on a motion to look at those and other, that, take some money toward on other kind of advertising, although I think Ms. Hahn did say there's no reason why we couldn't try to get some public service announcements. We can use Channel 35, we can do all, there's a number of partner pieces of legislation that I think we can add to this, but I think this one is pretty well thought out. I think the 60-day time, just to let things that fall through the cracks in the 30-day get to, so you can contact the right people and get them to take advantage of what's available with us trying to do the right thing. But I think the ordinances do make sense. Clearly hearing the passion around the room about this kind of incident rising to the occasion of this other criminal activities we're talking about makes sense. And as we say, let's do it a couple of times and word will get out.
Ms. Hahn to close.
Thank you. I would just ask that we move the committee report. This was the Public Safety Committee who unanimously approved all three of these items, and I ask for an aye vote. As Jack Weiss said this morning, difficult times cry out for creative solutions. This is it. Let's be bold.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. I believe we're ready for a series of votes here. Colleagues, there wasn't too much specific discussion on items 8 and 9. Let's vote on those two matters, and then we'll vote on the series of amending motions for item number 10.
Mr. President,
Right, as amended by the 30 to 60 day.
Move the whole committee
So,
report.
yes, items 8 and 9 first. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
Okay, 8 and 9 are approved. Now, on 10, we do have some
Forthwith on
specific-
8 and 9.
We'll send the whole package when we're done forthwith. On item 10, we did have a couple of amending motions. Madam Clerk, you want to guide us through those amending motions, and we'll take specific votes.
there was an amending motion by Mr. Cardenas regarding the formalizing the education and also the cost-effectiveness of the education for the
Okay.
offenders.
Let's open the roll.
Amendment to the committee report, not to the ordinance, because we really have to bring back an ordinance with that kind of information. So let's send that to committee to work on the other ideas that he suggested in terms of the allocation from the forfeiture to go to some specific things.
Okay, so is that okay with you, Mr. Cardenas? Okay, that's acceptable. Let's move on to the next amending motion.
Okay, there was an amending motion by Mr. Villaraigosa that this be applicable to commercial vehicles only, that the ordinance be amended.
It was commercial vehicles for the forfeiture, impounding of private vehicles.
Impounding of private vehicles. So it addresses the private vehicle situation. Yeah.
Ask for a no
Right.
vote on this.
It would be asset forfeiture of the commercial vehicles, impounding of the private vehicles,
And a 60-day review.
and a review
6-month
attached
review.
to all of the motion. That we have an opportunity to evaluate this after a year's period of time.
I think we should separate that part, because I think everybody's in favor of evaluating it.
Okay.
We can separate it.
Let's bifurcate then. Let's take a vote on the, is it a 6-month review or 1-year review?
1 year.
1-year review. Let's open the roll.
Yeah, that's good.
Roll is open. Please close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
Okay, that is approved. Now, the balance of the amending motion deals with its application only to commercial vehicles. As far as private vehicles are concerned, we're looking at impounding only. Is that clear? Let's open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
3 eyes, 9 noes.
Okay, that does not carry. Now, on the entire matter, as amended, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 eyes, 1 no.
Okay, that is approved.
And
8, 9, and 10 forthwith, please.
The ord will go over 1 week on item number 10.
Good debate.
Next item, please.
Item number 40 was called special by Councilmember Labange.
Mr. Labange.
Councilmember Smith and Zine, Weiss and Gruel, Cardenas, and Padilla all know the impacts of Highway 101, and Cindy Misikowski, when you represented that area as well. And this is a small contribution to support midterm projects that we could try to get back on track in discussion. We have a representative from the Department of Transportation here. If you could take the center table real quick and just give a little brief update. Members, what the City of Los Angeles is trying to get back on track is a discussion about Highway 101, the Ventura Freeway, and the Hollywood Freeway from the 4-level out past the city limits of Thousand Oaks. And if you could introduce yourself and give us the update on what we're doing here.
At council's direction, we have assembled a task force and 3 citizen advisory committees in 3 different areas affecting 101 corridor. The object being to build some kind of consensus and full community participation in the selection of projects in this corridor, which will help us relieve congestion and improve mobility in the city of Los Angeles so that we can keep the freeway traffic on the freeway, which should not get into our neighborhoods. Today's motion is basically a request to allocate small amount of funds so that we can allocate adequate resources to work on these projects and the community.
Thank you. And, Mr. President, members, within the right-of-way, we're going to try to say things can be done. And within the right-of-way, if there's adjacent parcels, we could say there is a small number that may be needed for the public good to expand the ability of the freeway to serve the people. As you can look at the history of how that freeway was designed, everything was to move to the west. Well, now we want to get formal interchanges and improve that. So, members, I call for an aye vote, and I thank all of you for your support on this very important issue. We want to try to get more auxiliary lanes on the side of the roadways so that we can have that safe on and off ramp. And if we drive the freeway right now, we can see that I know none of us are, only one of us is an engineer, right? Two. Tony's an engineer. So there's 2 engineers. And if we...
Tom, I have enough work. I have enough work.
Oh, no, okay. If we drove the freeway right now, we could see certain spots that they could correct within a short-term project that would make a strong impact on the flow of traffic through all of Los Angeles and especially the San Fernando Valley. I ask for an aye vote. Thank you very much.
Other members wishing to be heard on this item? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 72 was called special by Councilmember Labange.
Mr.
Excuse me, by Councilmember Ludlow.
We look alike.
Happens all the time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk and Mr. President.
Mr. Ludlow, before you continue, we do have one speaker card on this item. I don't know if you wish to speak first or go directly to Ms. Brown.
We can do it right afterwards. I think should be brief. Members, on September 12th, there was an emergency resulting from a DWP water line break, which caused flooding of Cloverdale Avenue north of Venice Boulevard. Several homes were devastated by the flooding, and our office found out about the flooding by chance. In fact, a member of my staff was doing one of his proactive drives through the neighborhood almost a week later and came across continuing damage that was caused by this. This incident caused extensive damage to the homes. Many of the residents lost furniture, appliances, and other belongings. And I wanted to show just a couple of minutes of a video that was shot by Myra Reyes, who's actually here. If you could run this video, members, if you could just watch this for one moment.
Miren, no tenemos miedo. Vente para acá, te vas a sentar de nalga.
This again is on Cloverdale, and it's edited. There's a few different pieces here, but this is inside a living room that was flooded by a DWP water line break. And this is almost a day after the flood, or after the water line break. But I want you to see just in a moment the actual flooding that took place down the street. Can you move the video forward?
¿Y qué va a venir a hacer? ¿Se va a ahogar ella también? No, que allá se quede, está bien, allá.
So this is the flood as it's taken place on Cloverdale. This happened in the early morning hours and continued for several hours. This is a water main break that ended up taking out a sewer line. And so part of what you're seeing right now is a mixture of, obviously, DWP water line and sanitation sewage line mixing in this neighborhood. And I'm going to, 1 minute, just have stats fine. Now, the reason I wanted to show that is a couple of reasons. One is that I'm aware, and I don't know if we have people here from DWP, Building and Safety, or the city's Emergency Preparedness Department, but I'd like to ask them to come forward. One of the issues that this brings up is the way in which we as a city respond to localized disasters. In the event that we had an airplane crash or we had an earthquake, I think this city's Emergency Preparedness Department has a phenomenal program. In fact, I think we've seen over the last couple of months the drills that have been run by the department that both police and fire have felt have been exceptional drills. But what concerns me is within a week of this incident, there was still significant challenges to this neighborhood. And one of my concerns is how we as a city are prepared to respond to that localized emergency. Because as far as these people are concerned, the whole city could be flooded. To them, that was a flood is a flood is a flood. And how we respond to this is of utmost concern to me. And so myself and seconded by Member Misikowski have introduced this motion to ask for some, not only some clarification, but perhaps some looking into how the city responds. And so I'd like to just start off with asking a couple of questions about how the city responds to something like this. How do the departments coordinate to make sure that temporary housing, food, clothing, how do we respond to that in a localized disaster?
Thank you, Councilman Ludlow. I'm Ellis Stanley with the Emergency Preparedness Department, General Manager. We do have response plans in place. We have response plans for non-declared emergencies. And typically, the first responding agency that's there, depending on, it doesn't matter who it is the one that assumes control and create an incident command system. And that's when all the other supporting departments are involved. In this particular situation, you're absolutely right. It was an emergency. It was an emergency for those individuals, and it doesn't matter the number of people impacted. If one home or 200 homes are involved, it was an emergency for them, and we do
hold my time.
And we do have procedures to respond accordingly. If it's Red Cross, as an example, do respond to non-declared emergencies. It does not have to be declared an emergency to get assistance and response. I believe in this case that the DWP did respond and did put the individuals out of their homes into a safe and secure place. I believe it was a hotel. And pursuant to your ordinance, we will be preparing a response for the public safety meeting with all the details that took place in that issue.
Well, and right here, I mean, I have the Emergency Operations Master Plan and Procedures, which actually describes criteria for neighborhood disasters, but it's, or non-declared emergencies, I should say, non-declared emergencies. But the first responding agency, what kind of authority do they have to command and demand responsiveness from all city departments in a situation like this. Because to DWP's credit, they did end up putting people up for a couple of nights. But the issue becomes all of that ongoing response that needs to happen, coordination of other city departments. Do they have, is there an authority vested in them that all other departments have to rise to and respect in that instance?
As I indicated, in our system, and it's actually part of California's law on the SAMs, that's part of the incident command system, they would have the authority to call any resources that they need, and I think they usually do that. What we can check is whether there's additional training or more training, or whether these are new people or whatever, but I don't know all the details of what precipitated the following incidents on this particular situation.
Because I would like to make, one department in particular that didn't get notified was the council office. We didn't find out about it until we were just driving through the neighborhood. So if there's this plan, I'm just trying to figure out who's following it and at what point the council offices get notified that there's a local disaster in your neighborhood. And I know that you wanted to mention something.
Wendy Yancey, Water and Power. And relative to the specific incident on Cloverdale, the DWP turning off the water, repairing the main, and so forth and so on, and then relocating the residents, that was considered the emergency, and we acted accordingly within the Department of Water and Power. The necessity to identify other folks came later once we thought that there was a sewer problem, and so forth and so on. But as you did state, that there is small missing piece in the plan, and I agree too that perhaps in addition to all the other departments and agencies, perhaps the elected officials could be notified, so that you could go in and you may determine, you see it a little differently, that perhaps there's a step further that we should be taking, as opposed to just looking at the immediate resolution as we did on Cloverdale.
Well, just two examples, and I know you continue to run my time, but the decision to return people to their homes, who makes that call in a situation like this?
In this particular instance, it was the DWP. It had been determined that the home was now safe, meaning the water was clear, all the facilities were safe. And so we made the determination that they no longer needed to be housed in the hotel.
And just give me a sense of what particular expertise DWP official has to determine that a home, its foundation is safe, there's no sanitation, contamination, there's no roof damage. What experience and expertise do they have to be able to make that judgment call?
Well, in this particular instance, and not being on site when this happened, I would assume that it was specifically, it's cleaned out, the sanitation had been called in, and as far as the assumption that there were some sewer issues. Everything seemed to be okay there. Now, it is my understanding that within a week or so, the housing department was notified because there were some foundational issues. But at that particular juncture, we did not know that there were foundational issues. According to our engineers / crews, it was habitable.
Well, and I think you mentioned that you agreed, and so that would be an example, in my opinion, of where this command structure breaks down and how, on that site supervisor, who did a phenomenal job from DWP, he was doing the best he could, but he's got to have something to back him up that says, I need housing out here, I need building and safety out here, I need assistance to make a professional call that these homes are safe, they're sanitary, and we're now going to send these families back in. So these are the kinds of things that I think we need to start digging into with respect to tightening up this policy. I have a couple of follow-ups, but I want to yield to some of my other colleagues.
Okay. And before we hear from other members of the council, let's hear from members of the public here on this item. Ms. Althea Brown, please come forward, and Bertha Mata, please come forward.
I would like to know what they're going to do about our homes. Our homes are still not safe. We still need clothing for the home. Where the water was, it smells there. I put all kind of deodorants and stuff there, and it still smells. The concrete has cracked where the water has seeped in and cut the concrete up and stuff. We still haven't heard anything about you guys, what y'all gonna do about us. What you gonna do about our homes? We still have to live there.
It's DWP, Wendy Yancey. What I will do is I will work with you. We can file a claim and
we filed the claim. We haven't heard anything from the claims.
I will work on that for you, with you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Councilmember Miskowski.
Creo que hay otros
Oh,
oradores.
there's another speaker coming forward? Okay, thank you.
Gracias.
Hi, my name is Bertha Mata, and I reside in Cloverdale. And we felt, we felt like if we were not getting the proper attention as we should. I know they gave us housing, but we actually had to pay with our money, and they were supposed to reimburse us back. Some of us didn't have the budget or the money to go to a hotel. What we were told when this happened, it was that water that you saw there, it was just from, like if it had just rained. And nobody came back to us to tell us that, the only thing that they say, it was safe, but nobody came to assure us. We felt like we were elected, like we were just left there. They left, they didn't come back, or they worry about, our safety. And we were not feeling like if we were taken, and I said, like if we were not taken seriously. And some of us felt like we were discriminated too. Because some of the beds were wet, they couldn't sleep there, and they said, well, you cannot go no more to the hotel. We were saying, we need to go because our beds are not safe, they're still wet, and they said, well, just put it out there and dry it. That's what we were told to do.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Councilmember Miskowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of Mr. Ludlow's motion, and I'm going to actually ask something else. One, that the responsible agencies, and I guess Mr. Stanley will ask you to coordinate it, report back on an after-incident report as to what lessons learned, because when Mr. Ludlow told me about this, his first idea was, gee, we need to put in place a plan. And I said, we have a plan. We have emergency response agencies who train and do this, and my goodness, we've done any number of citywide tests, citywide challenges, so that we are trained to do something. But on this small incident, it was the first time that I'd ever heard that there was this incredible delay in notifying the council office. Usually council office, we get alerted if there's a police shooting, we get alerted if there's a fire. But on other things, sewer line breaks, water line breaks, clearly the council office is on that loop to be notified. It's not, doesn't say so in the report, but it's call everybody on the call list. And each council office has people on our staffs or council members themselves who are to be notified on a 24-hour basis. I know probably Tom and I both as staff members served in that place on council offices. So this one, there was a failure. There was a failure here by offices, and I appreciate that DWP did a good job of going and clean up, but I don't know that DWP engineers are on the site as opposed to just your initial first-in responders to look and make the determination of safety of the structure, of safety of the issues beyond the immediate structure in terms of the air, in terms of other things. Had there been any mixture of sewer with the sewer line break, or was that capped? These are incidents that the first-in responder may not have knowledge of, but you really need to pull all those others there and have the incident commander. Doesn't need to be police department, but it needs to be somebody responsible, from either Board of Public Works or DWP would seem to be the two main agencies. Mr. Ludlow indicated that when there were, as the incident was occurring down the street, there was no Department of Transportation there putting up the barricades, trying to prevent it. He says that the first-in responder was a local black and white police car who tried to go in, and this lone patrol officer recognized the situation, tried to prevent people from going down the street to make sure that people weren't going to go into this water-filled area. But there was not coordination, and that failure we can't accept, and we need to figure out. Big stuff is good. Do the big stuff for big emergencies citywide. But use this as the test that was really thrust upon us and thrust upon this poor neighborhood that did not get, I think, adequate response from the city. So I think it needs a full airing, a full flush review through EOC, if you're the responsible party, to make sure that the responsible parties in the various departments, and at all levels, those people who go in on the 24-hour call need to know that they can and should call out others on that 24-hour early morning response to make sure that there is a full, effective team of people who know what they need to do, can do it, and can respond, so that both citizens, council office, and all the responsible agencies are there to do what their job ought to be. Because, as you say, it doesn't take a big disaster. A local disaster in one or two houses, a small neighborhood, are just as bad in terms of the impact and effect on that neighborhood. So we need follow-up, we need to know whether or not we need to change anything in our ordinance, or, as I think you mentioned right from the beginning, a stronger alert and training, particularly those who respond on those kind of issues. We do it, you know, it's interesting, when we've had our, and I know Mr. Labange and Mr. Smith will remember this, when we have big disasters, heavy rains for a long time, we get everybody prepared, and we'll get street services out there looking at a flood because we're sort of all alert that it's coming, or we've been soaked and things might start falling and slipping and breaking. But here was one that was just that incident that had needed that same kind of alert, that same kind of responsiveness, and I don't think it happened here. So we need, again, after incident report, like the police department does, as to what are the lessons learned, how can we do better in the future in general, what needs to be changed, put into the policy, and then again, specifically, what still needs to go on here, making sure that all the responsible agencies are looking and assisting these residents with their homes, with additional claims that might need to be filed, with additional coverage that the city owes as an obligation to them to make this better.
Will do. Thank you, Councilmember Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Colleagues, I wanted to, first of all, stand up and support this motion and applaud Councilmember Ludlow for his responsiveness for a pretty significant incident in his district. I think it went below the radar for the rest of the council because it was something that didn't get a whole lot of news coverage. It wasn't on the front page of the newspaper, but as you saw by the video, it was a very, very significant incident in the district for the people who live in the area were certainly affected. The surrounding neighbors, because, you know, the cleanup, the aftermath is going to be around for a while. And so I just wanted to stand up and call upon all of us, colleagues, all of us, and especially the new members, to follow this discussion, to add our 2 cents when this report comes back to committee. And I do so because I had a similar incident happen in my district about a year and a half ago. It wasn't the level of flooding, the level of damage that we've seen here, but as the Department of Water and Power says, we had a main line break in my district which caused some minor flooding and impact to the homes relative to this incident. But the part about rapid response is what I'm most interested in, most concerned about. So I'm seeking to not only speak directly with Mr. Ludlow, but possibly participate in the committee meeting as well when the after incident report comes back, and offer our 2 cents as to how the city can respond better. Because I think we do a pretty good job when it comes to earthquakes. We do a pretty good job when it comes to you know, the major fires or the major natural disasters. But when it comes to incidents like this, with with an aging infrastructure, this isn't the first time it's happened. It's probably not going to be the last time it happens. We can do and we must do a better job for the people that are being impacted in responding. And some of the specific areas that I think we learned from in the incident in the Northeast Valley was immediate communication back to the residents on not drinking the water and those sorts of things. Response and communication to residents in multiple languages and through multiple efforts. It's not just hoping that the news coverage is going to reach enough people. It's knocking on doors if we can, and we have the capacity to, with circulating information via phone, via flyers in multiple languages. It's doing things after the math, after the fact, whether it's how to get back into your home and into a livable environment, whether it's a minor reimbursement or compensation for inconvenience or loss to the customers. There's a lot of tools that we have as a city collectively, and by adding this to the list of responsibilities of the Emergency Operations Department or Emergency Preparedness Department, I think it is a good way to sort of centralize it because there's multiple departments involved, but also amend, if not create additional policies and protocols and procedures, because that's what the residents of Los Angeles deserve. And so, again, I commend Mr. Ludlow for having brought this to our attention and really encourage all members of the council to add our collective experiences. If this hasn't happened in your district, odds are it's going to happen in your district in the future, maybe next year, maybe 20 years from now, but it's not going to happen in other parts of the city. And for the newer members of the council, this is a chance really to learn from other people's experiences and learn about what the city does and offers already. Thank you, Mr. Ludlow.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you, Mr. President. And
Martin, thank you for bringing this forward. Cindy, thank you. And Cindy, a couple of months ago, or maybe a year, you had a motion as far as when there's a, and I just wanted to ask where that is, when there's a disaster like a fire and they close off PCH, it affects Sunset, and you have a rapid response team from DOT. Has that been enacted yet?
On Sepulveda for the fires that happened. We had a series of fires one season, and people weren't allowed back in their home, you're right, it ricochets or backs up, and police shouldn't be at the closest end point of the instance, say you can't go here, they should be further back, particularly rush hour, to get traffic dispersed earlier. And we did create that action.
And then the action team from DOT who closed off the area, I think there was something there. And I think when you mentioned about Mr. Smith and yourself and myself, we were deputies when Mr. Zion was still on his motorcycle. We all respond. Jan responded sometime, but who was always there first? If it was not a black and white, it was the fire department. And the only thing I wanted to say, because Sharon DeLucas is here, who I know is a deputy from Martin Ludlow. I remember coming to work and the house had just fallen off, and your office with Jackie Goldberg was right there within minutes, which helped the protocol. It helps when you have a community office, which a council office is, there. And in the after-action report, Ellis Stanley, I want you to see if on the box, because if you go to, as most of us had incidents, if you go to the back, which used to be the back trunk of a chief's car is now the back of a Suburban. There's a list that it cites all the resources that are there. They have a lot of check boxes. I think you got to get a check box, and you may want to talk to, because I don't know what the fire department's response to this, but I'm sure it was significant because of trying to rescue people out of the homes as it escalated. But they could be the point, and I'm sorry there's no one from the fire department here to speak to this issue here, but to hit that click it so that people get notified. What happens, because I did have experience at Water and Power, is they come from all over the city, sometimes crews from the valley or wherever they may be, to get immediately into this situation. And what the water does, which is one of the strongest things in the world, that erodes the streets so rapidly that then the sewer line gets broken. So you have that combination where they're focused to make this change on that. So that's a protocol that I think that would be worthy of looking into, that the council office is notified so that they could respond in some way there. And I would ask too for our city attorney, because you think about these situations where maybe in 2 years, 3 years, we'll be back here and there'll be an item 52 and it will be the result of an action on a particular street based on something. Should the city attorney, like when on a major incident, have a rapid response call out on these incidents to make sure our protocols are being hit, so the liability and exposure to the city is decreased due to this? So those are just 2 points that I wanted to make, but I truly believe if we could say anything, that the fire department in the command structure of an incident is the one I would tend to point to say, let's call that, make sure the council. And Greg, you know, what do you think? If you could add anything on this, because I think that's the one thing, I think just the protocol. Let me ask one more question. Wendy, do you agree with what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay, good, all right. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Labange.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Gracias, señor presidente. No más quiero repetir todo lo
Comments that have been made, but I did want to stand up as well and compliment my colleague Martin Ludlow, because we all have experiences in our district that we can learn from and help with the rest of the city, and I think you have demonstrated in your brief time here that this is one of those incidences that we can change the way we respond to take care of those individuals who have been impacted by this and learn from our mistakes. And so I think that it's been a very good dialogue today. And as you can see from city personnel, that obviously all of us care deeply about this, and it's something that we believe we need to have a plan when this type of occurrence. We hope it never occurs again, but I think I just want to compliment you and your leadership on this issue.
Mr. Zion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Martin, I've been to many of these tragedies over my career, and I know that if it occurs in day watch hours, 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, everybody's there. The problem oftentimes is when it occurs on a weekend, or 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, it's difficult to get resources to the scene other than police and fire. and other skeletal crews of DOT out. This particular incident, did your department respond?
No, emergency preparedness, no.
Okay, and you probably weren't even notified.
Much later, several days.
Several days after the incident.
Yes.
And I know concern I have is for the residents, and I know that the attitude of the city's always been file a claim, it's denied, you hire an attorney. Is there any process in place whereby it's obviously pipe that broke, city's going to be liable, that they try to settle to assist the people other than a couple nights at a hotel to get closure before it goes to litigation? Is there any process in place in that arena? Other than an airplane crashes, I know it's not the city's responsibility, but an incident where it is the city's responsibility, city property, is there a process in place to assist those folks without going through litigation? I ask Water and Power.
I'm not 100% sure, actually, to be honest. I know what you stated is the truth, that you can place a claim, and I don't know that it's just automatically, because the incident occurred, that it's approved. However, I will take it back, and we will look at this and see that we can, not just particularly this incident, but all incidents, to see how we can better address that. But again, that's a legal issue that I'm not 100% sure on.
It's a legal arena. My concern is that for an innocent individual who is traumatized by a situation, whether it be the water line breaking, a city vehicle plows into a residence and destroys the residence, no one is injured. Other than filing the claim, other than going through that process, hiring attorneys, where we admit there's liability on our part, to have a quick claim where the city attorney's office, in coordination with that department, would say, we find there's damages caused by the city's responsibility, and we settle that, instead of going through this long process. And then greatly inconvenience to the people who've been affected by this, and no fault of their own. Do you know anything about that?
I do. Well, there is a claim process that we have to follow. Claims are filed, and it does not necessarily have to be filed by an attorney. And our claims unit does deal directly with the residents in situations like this.
So in a case like this, would they then respond to this protocol to say, we want to help these folks to get permanent residence, or the situation that occurred where the train derailed, wiped out a bunch of homes? Well, my concern is that we take care of the innocent people and assist them as quickly as possible without having to go through a long litigation. Or we say it's our fault, the train went off the tracks, the railroad's going to take care of it. Do we have a process, or does that have to be included in Mr. Ludlow's proposal?
It's something that we could study, but presently there is a claims process that we handle before a lawsuit is even filed. There are avenues to settle these claims before a lawsuit is even filed.
But they don't go to the scene if the incident hadn't occurred?
Not usually, no.
Okay, so I think that may want to be included in part of this.
And just as a clarification, what Mr. Ludlow was asking is for an assessment of the incident that happened with a report back to committee, so that in committee, when this reaches committee, we can either add additional protocols, procedures, or amend existing ones. So your suggestion is very good, and after some study, that would be the appropriate time for decision making.
One question, Mr. Ludlow. What time did this occur, and what day of the week? Because this is the first I've heard about it.
Yeah, from the information, there's a couple of things that I'd like to get back, as Cindy had mentioned, in terms of the incident report and follow-up. To the best of our knowledge, the line broke around 5 a.m. on Friday, September 12th, and it appears that around almost 7 a.m., DWP workers arrived on the scene. So that was running. It looked like it's running for about 2 hours.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Ludlow, to close.
And I appreciate what Mr. Zine was just asking, and in fact, let me just ask this question. And City Attorney, to the best of your knowledge, what does it take in this case? I mean, you all have seen the footage here. This is a TWP, this is a city property, this is a city line that broke. Literally a couple of the homes are going to have substantial foundation claims, and in fact, one house may not be habitable at all. what can we do to assure the residents who are here that these claims are going to be expedited? Is there somebody in the city's structure that can connect with them today? Is there somebody that can, I mean, because the process, and I really appreciated Mr. Zine raising that, has been a humiliating one for them. I mean, we saw what happened, and they've been told, submit the forms and we'll get back to you. We shouldn't have to put it in. We always end up in this closed session here, where we're trying to figure out why are we still in this fight? Why did we settle this one at the beginning? Or what can be done to expedite in these situations? Because again, you're dealing with people who don't have a lot of resources. And in fact, I want to come back on the final question relative to that. But is there something that can be done to expedite their claims?
Well, first of all, they have to file a claim, present a claim with the clerk's office. And after it's filed, presented with the clerk's office, then our claims unit will be handling it. And they can be requested to expedite it, but they still have to evaluate the bills, evaluate the damage, and they will work with the claimant.
And so the person who came out, if I understand correctly, was actually a city attorney working within the DWP, actually came back out later that week and sat down and started doing claims with them. Is there something we can say today to them that reassures them that we're going to move quickly on this? How long does that process take? What is the waiting period that they should be expecting to endure?
I don't have the answers to those specific questions, but as part of this report back, our office would be happy to participate.
And then I think Cindy's making a good point. I'd like to request that this be part of the report back that comes from the offices so that you all get some information as quickly as possible. In fact, let me just ask this last question. This needs to go obviously into the committee, into the discussions. But the woman who came up and reported her experiences on this mentioned that they're required to use their own money. And one thing she didn't say that I am aware of is that they were actually told to check out of the motel every day. And then they would await word 5 to 6 hours later whether or not they could go back. That's absurd to me. That's absurd to me. What can we do to look in? I mean, I just think that's unconscionable. Is that standard procedure? I don't know. And again, if it's standard procedure, then obviously you're just the unlucky souls that are sitting here today representing the standard procedure. But is that not standard procedure, or is it?
I'd like to report back on that, actually.
Yeah, typically it's not, but I know for Red Cross incidents, it's not the situation where you got to check out every day, and I will follow up on that as part of the report.
So they should have been able to stay there during the incident, during the recovery time.
Until their place was declared habitable.
That's good to know that that's the standard procedure, and we need to find out what happened in this situation and why they were told to check out.
Thank you, Mr. Ludlow. I now have members back on the queue. Mr. Cardenas for the first time, Mr. LeBron, and Ms. Michikowski each for a second time. Mr. Cardenas.
On this subject matter, you are going to be reporting back some findings and also further explanation of how we can handle this in the future, what things you may be able to do better, correct?
Yes.
One of the things that I'd like to see in there, in that report is the basic how do you say, expenditure limits that we have. For example, if somebody in Pacoima ends up in this situation, do they put them up at a hotel at $59 a night, yet if something happens in Jack's district, they put them up in a hotel that's $350 a night? Is there a cap? Is there a limit? Is there an equity issue going on here? Because we're all Angelenos. Unfortunately, these things do occur. We want to make sure that people are respected and that they don't feel as though they're treating as second-class citizens when we all should be being treated equally. Thank you.
Mr. Labange.
Martin, you made another great point. This is a great discussion there, but I'm always concerned that we have a situation like this, an unnatural occurrence, and then the people who are affected by it have to go through great hurdles to get their due. And none of you are city attorneys at this table, and none of you are city clerks at this table, which is where we have to file a claim. So, Martin, what you're talking about needs further discussion, because I often felt right now out on Wilshire Boulevard, which is one of the grandest streets of the whole city, if a Ficus tree branch knocks down and falls on your windshield, right as an act of God, whoever he or she may be, they will make you go through a bunch of hurdles to get your windshield fixed, even though the branch just fell out of a natural situation. Well, I think we should have a desk, and I have talked to our city attorney, Rocky Delgadillo, but I think we should maybe talk to him more to create an office, and I don't know what the name is, but a desk where you go to where there's one person who says, I understand, this was a natural concern. Because there are, Mr. City Attorney, how many times do people try to buffalo the city and try to get a claim and it's maybe not justified? How many did we turn down, do we know?
We regularly turn down many.
Many. A lot of people try to come to the city for things. This was an accident, an unnatural situation, and we should be right there to say, yes, we are going to resolve it. And to answer Councilmember Cardenas' question, I know with the Red Cross, at least when I was working very closely, they have contract hotels, already pre-established rates in vicinities of areas where they send people in to live for the temporary time there. But I do think we need to strengthen this, because it always disappointed me. I remember we had a claim against Reckitt Park. Someone was parked next to a tree. The branch fell. They just parked their car where it said legally parked, and it made the people go through so much trouble. Go through much trouble just to get the claim to be adjusted. I think we just got to clarify that. I think this was an excellent discussion on many fronts, so I think you can broaden it to add the city attorney and the city clerk on this discussion. I thank you very much.
Mr. Council.
And I just want to announce that we'll have this in Public Safety Committee in 2 weeks, so I want an instant report ready in 2 weeks. And there's no question that some of the answers are being given today, well, we'll have to check into it, I don't know. That isn't good enough to the public staff members who are here. Clearly a city incident, clearly verifiable city incident. There should be clearly verifiable city assistance given now to these people. We can argue about some of the details of the claims later, but they should be told not just file a claim and we'll let you know. File a claim, it gets it started, we're going to be there. We've seen incidents where city vehicles hit somebody's hospitalized, the city starts paying the hospital bill right away. We decide later how much, what's the end, what we will ultimately settle for, but we've got to be in there now. And just as DWP was in there now and said, okay, go and we'll pay for a stay, it should be a stay, whether it's a voucher or something, until further notice, until we've decided it's okay. And that there was enough to go around here in terms of blame or not adequate action, but we need strong adequate action. And if we need the general managers here to say what needs to be done, how it will be done, and how these people get that information, rather than a blank file a claim and we'll let you know that is not satisfactory. Clearly, it's probably appropriate in incidents where we have to determine what happened. Did the branch fall or didn't it fall? There's reason to be legally cautious. This one, the whole thing started with is fully the blame of the city of Los Angeles. The city should take ownership of it and give these people that assistance up front, not say follow the process. That's the difference here, and that's where we need to go. And I want that kind of report back, response back from all the responsible agencies up front, not only what they're doing in carrying on and bringing this one to finality with the level of dignity and response that it needs, but also to say to all city employees who are in a situation like this, make those decisions, call somebody who can make those decisions to get that service out quickly when we know. When we know there's a question, we'll take our time and discern what needs to be done. This one, there is no question, so let's get on it.
Ms. Perry.
Thanks very much, Mr. President. And Councilmember Mizikowski is correct on what the report should reflect. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for the report, community members here still have their needs. When I was chief of staff in this district prior to 2001, I had an incident which also impacted the residents in a very significant way. And I can tell you from experience, we had to be very dogged in making sure that they got food, they got housing, and that it was immediate. And I don't think that we can expect them to wait for the report to come back. I'm sure the report will be useful, but in the meantime, while we're in that period, I hope that there are processes in place that can give them immediate relief, even if it includes relocating them, because to live amidst mold from water damage can be very detrimental to people's respiratory systems.
Mr. Ludlow to
Señor
close.
Lalo, para cerrar.
Thank you, Ms. Perry, for that, because I think you're exactly right. And the three of the kids involved are asthmatics, and there were a lot of issues related to that. You know, just in closing, I want to say, and members, I appreciate this discussion, because I don't know who said it, but this can happen in anybody's district. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that water line was built in 1924. It's on the list. I know January, in fact, it's scheduled to be replaced. And members, throughout the city, we have an aging water system, and there are many, many examples. It could be a fire, it could be water, it could be whatever. But obviously, Ellis, you've got a big, big challenge, and yours is sort of looking at the macro scale, getting the city ready for a major disaster. I know you guys have been doing a number of drills, getting the city ready for that. City fire, police have coordinated. There's been a lot of focuses on that. This probably is more common of a likelihood. And so, to Ms. Mizikowski's point, I'm thrilled that we'll take this up in 2 weeks, and I would really urge you to do what you can to prioritize a little more of the time on this localized issue and see what we can do to get something moving quickly. And again, Mr. Padilla is exactly right. This didn't get a TV, you know, this wasn't on TV. It didn't make the newspapers. And so for the rest of the world, this incident didn't exist. But for the people who are here, it was one of the worst tragedies that they're ever going to witness. Hopefully this is the worst that they'll witness. And we need to get ready for many, many other experiences when they happen in other neighborhoods. And I appreciate this discussion, members, and would urge an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Ludlow. Mr. Zine.
I just want to add one more final comment. Sanitation was involved, along with water and power. And I can see when they file a claim, they'll quibble back and forth. Was it sanitation line that caused the problem, or was it water and power, or was it both? The people who were victimized by this tragedy, no fault of their own, don't need to go through that whole anguishing process. And I'm sure they're going through it right now, sitting here at 10 after 1. So I'm looking forward to this in public safety, and we will get it all squared away. That's done. We're done. I call the question, it's done.
No, you can't make comments and call the question. Mr. Labange. All right, colleagues, let's wrap this discussion up. Are we ready for a vote? Okay, let's proceed with the vote, Madam Clerk. Please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, that is approved. Look forward to that report. Next item, please.
Mr. President, I believe Councilmember Perry wishes to reconsider item number 26 for an amendment.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm making a motion for reconsideration. I have an amending motion I wish to introduce to ask relevant departments to find some additional funding for this housing project.
Okay, let's open the roll on reconsideration. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, item 26 is reconsidered back before us. Ms. Perry.
Yeah, again, it's non-controversial. It's just to ask the departments to look for other additional funding sources for a affordable housing project in the 9th District.
Okay, without objection, that motion has been distributed. Let's reopen the roll on item 26 as amended. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
This is the time for comments from the public on items not on council's agenda.
And we do have one card, Mr. John E. Williams. Will you please come forward? Mr. John Williams has left. This concludes public comment for today's meeting. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Motion shall be posted and referred.
There is an excuse on the desk. Councilmember Perry requests to be excused Friday, October 3rd, to arrive late for city business that meets council policy.
Ms. Perry is excused.
And that clears the desk.
Okay. Colleagues, are there any announcements today? Ms. Perry and Mr. Zine?
Okay, thank you very much. Just wanted to announce the resolution that Tom LaBonge and I signed on to for the Los Angeles Youth Arts Day and Youth Arts in Los Angeles Week in the month of October. And I believe that Mr. LaBonge and I will be doing a presentation this coming Friday to welcome this Arts Walk in Los Angeles, or Arts Day in Los Angeles. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very proud to say that I'm going to have to put my tent away I don't need my tent anymore to block the Amundsen project. Tomorrow at 2:30, October 1st at 2:30 at Amundsen Ranch, there's going to be a signing ceremony with the governor, Rob Reiner, a number of other people, community leaders, environmentalists, that the Amundsen project, which I thank all my colleagues, the mayor and the city attorney, is now going to be parkland. Santa Monica Mountain Conservancy is going to take ownership of the Amundsen Ranch, and we're going to have, beautiful parkland for Wendy's little child to roam around in the far west San Fernando Valley, the eastern part of Ventura County. That project has finally come to completion. Tomorrow the document will be signed. It will become state parkland. So my appreciation to all of you. This has been a battle for many, many years, and I carried it for over 2 years. So it's a final completion. And again, if anyone wants a tent, I will now sell my tent that I was going to post out there at Valley Circle and Victory Boulevard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zad. Mr. Smith?
Yes, on behalf of Mr. Villaraigosa, I ask that number 41 go forthwith, please.
Okay, well, let me think about that one. Mr. Labange and Ms. Misikowski.
Members, in today's Los Angeles Times sports section on page 9 was a wonderful little article by Eric Sondheimer of the sports section about a message that our city attorney, Rocky Delgadillo, gave to athletes from around the city who gathered at Taft High School, where they bring them all together. And Rocky talked about sportsmanship and being involved in student leadership, and also about athletes should just concentrate on playing and not have the hate for one another. And he described a story that he went to Franklin High School, and one of his great rivals went to Wilson High School. And when he went to Harvard, to college, he had a roommate on the football team, and who was it? Was his rival from Wilson. You know, so you never know where you end up in life, and it's a wonderful story that Rocky described about the importance of athletics and community, the importance of schools and the programs, and to be focused on the sportsmanship, which is so key to a positive life and activity, which many of our young people are competing in sports teams now throughout the city, as well as the drill teams and the cheerleading squads and bands. So I just wanted to recall all of you to read today's sports section D9, a nice little feature on our city attorney.
Ms. Misikowski.
To what Mr. Zine announced and the signing ceremony tomorrow for the transfer of Amundsen to state parkland and open space. Similarly, today while we were meeting, the State Water Resources Board approved the final deal on the Playa Vista Trust for Public Land transfer and purchase of the open space west of Lincoln and north of Jefferson, so that the vast majority of that land will now also be in state ownership, not only preserving open space and wetlands, but preserving other space for our children, our future generation to come. And I think it's important to note that, because there's been some criticism of those two deals, and there has been years and years and years of support on the part of communities, vast efforts uniting people from throughout the city and throughout the Southern California region supporting this, and no deal can be done without paying a fair market value under state-approved, assessed, and appraised values, not done by somebody's private friends, but by state-approved assessors. So I think it's really a great day for the city of Los Angeles and the whole Southern California region that these two vast pieces of open space are going to be preserved forever.
Thank you, Ms. Misikowski. Other announcements? Announcements? If not, do we have adjourning motions today? Please rise for adjourning motions. Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First adjourning motion is in memory of John Olive May. John was born on October 11th, 1954, and passed away on September the 28th, 2003 of a massive stroke. He had two children, fraternal twins, Brandy and Brian Castle, and two grandchildren, and was an active member in the 9th District community, and was the brother of one of my field deputies, Phyllis May. The next adjournment is in memory of Lavertus Keys, who was a longtime resident of the city of Los Angeles in the 8th Council District. I'm doing this on behalf of Mr. Parks. She passed away at the age of 76 years on Saturday, September the 27th. She was born in Taylorsville, Mississippi, and moved to Los Angeles in the 1960s. Funeral services are scheduled for Friday, October the 3rd, 2003 at 1:30 p.m. at St. Thomas Baptist Church. She's survived by sister Tressie, brother-in-law Joseph Williams, son Billy, daughter Yolanda. And Mr. Parks and I both wanted to adjourn in memory, and I think Mr. Labange wants to participate on this as well. In memory of Althea Gibson, and little-known fact for me at least, Mr. Parks shared with me and Janice Hahn that okay, all members. Mr. Parks shared with me today before he left that she had spent some part of her adult life living in the 8th Council District, and she was a sports pioneer who broke the color barrier in tennis in the 1950s. She was the first black woman to compete in the U.S. Championships in 1950 and at Wimbledon in 1951. In 1957 and 1958, she began winning major tournaments, including the Wimbledon and U.S. Championships, the French Open, and 3 doubles titles at Wimbledon. At the age of 15 years old, she became the New York State Black Girls Singles Tennis Champion. In 1957 and 58, she was named Woman Athlete of the Year. And following her 1957 Wimbledon victory, she was given a ticker tape parade in New York and an official welcome at City Hall. Due to no prize money and few lucrative endorsements, Ms. Gibson retired from the game of tennis soon after her 1958 Wimbledon and U.S. titles. In 1960, she began playing golf, and in 62, she became the first black woman on the LPGA Tour. She was inducted into numerous halls of fame, became state commissioner of athletics in New Jersey in 1975, where she served for 10 years, served on the State Athletics Control Board until 1988, and the Governor's Council on Physical Fitness until 1992. Her athletic contributions will be forever cherished. She is survived by her brother Daniel Gibson Jr. and one sister, Lillian Chisholm.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. Other tributes? Do all members. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Llévese la lista y con esto terminamos.